Good evening and welcome to the October 15th Town Council meeting. We're starting out with the Town Council. We will shortly join, the school committee will join us for a joint meeting at 7:30. If I'm calling the meeting to order now, please, and if we could move to the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In taking the attendance of the town council members, it appears that we're all present. Item 4, I would move to public engagement. This is a chance for members of the public to send us a note to be read or to appear in person to speak for 2 minutes. The council typically does not engage at this time. If there's something important that we would need to discuss, we can do that at a future meeting if it would need deliberation. So I would go to Sherry now and ask us who our first person is, please.
Yes, Bill Conley is on with us for public participation tonight.
Excellent. Hi, Mr. Conley. If you could just identify yourself and then state your address and we'll let you chat.
Hi, Ann.
Hi, Bill.
And Council, Bill Conley, 83 Elm Street.
And I'm sorry, just go ahead whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. This statement I will read is in support of public agenda item 12, motion to refer to the planning board the 2 citizen petition articles for the regular town meeting proposing changes to the zoning bylaw. I'm speaking on behalf of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt in reference to public agenda item 12 and to the reported determination in the October 14 Wakefield daily item that the planning board will not consider the articles. We're very disappointed in this decision, seemingly decided before the articles were officially submitted to planning. The articles were properly submitted and met the published town meeting deadline. It seems illogical and unreasonable that a town planning board calendar could be set to not allow fair process, and that same calendar could not be adjusted to serve the citizens. We believe the articles submitted to town council and the choices they describe represent the best interests of the town of Wakefield and its citizens and be allowed for discussion and voting at November town meeting. We consider it very important that the town has a fair outcome to the important question of permitting shoreline residential development. Because of that, we are respectfully asking the town council to act on behalf of the citizens and request that the planning board adjust its schedule and hear and report on the articles. This statement is respectfully submitted on behalf of the board of the Friends of Lake Quannapowitt.
Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you.
Sherry, are there any other members from the group that want to speak?
No, nobody.
Indicated? Okay. I know that this is an issue that we're going to take up later in the meeting with regard to the proposed zoning bylaws. And so I think you'll probably hear certainly a robust discussion at that point, Bill, and we'll have Tom Mullen explain some of the situations and the legal ramifications of the timeline and everything that's happened. But we're certainly going to talk about that later in the meeting. Thank you so much.
We'll be here and we'll be happy to take any questions or try to answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm looking at my watch only because we have a public meeting at 7:10 that I want to keep that time strictly adhered to. We could do the approval of minutes. Could I please have a motion and a second to approve the September 29th, 2020 executive session meeting minutes? Moved by Peter,
Second.
Seconded by Paul. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Ed?
Aye.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second to approve the September 29th, 2020 regular town council meeting minutes.
So moved.
Moved by Julie, seconded by Paul. Roll call vote. Yes, myself. Ed?
Aye.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Great. Thank you. I think we can perhaps have a 4-minute appointment to the fence viewing committee. We have, Sherry, do we just have one position to fill or two?
I think we
sorry.
can do, well, there was one that resigned, but I think we can do unlimited. We're not,
Okay,
we don't have a cap.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
So if I could please have, I hope you had a chance to view the applications. If we could have a motion and a second to fill at least one of the terms.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion for Mr. Murray.
Certainly. Excellent. Does anyone would anyone like to make a motion for Amanda?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Certainly.
Second.
Moved by Jonathan, seconded by Maureen. Okay, if we could have a roll call vote for those two persons. Myself, I'm sorry, strike that. Any discussion?
Can I
Sure.
speak, Anne? Sorry. I just want to say, and thank you to Sherry, that we continuously get good applicants and the process has become so much better. And, to have someone who recently moved to town and has an opportunity to volunteer and give back, and then someone who's been here a really long time and continues to give back is great to see. So I just wanted to thank everyone for continuing to volunteer as we fill positions all night tonight.
Thank you. Excellent point. Ed, you had your hand raised?
Madam Chair, just a point of clarification. I know that the agenda says that there's one appointment that's to expire as of April 30th, 2021. So if that is in fact the case, Madam Clerk, then I would move that we appoint John Murray to the full term and Amanda Abbott to the term ending April 30th, 2021.
Sure. Could someone second Ed's motion?
Second.
Seconded by Paul. That sounds fine to me. Any discussion on Ed's motion clarifying the terms?
Madam
Jonathan.
Chair, maybe just a clarification. Are we defining the full term in this case as a 3-year term, a 2-year term? I don't know that we have that sort of set in stone, and if that's something we need to define as part of the motion.
Sherry, does it indicate the length of the term? I'm sorry.
They are 3 years.
3
I am
years.
just, yep, but I'm just checking to see the present member on this committee. He has a term through 2023. So I don't know if you want to make this one a staggered one to do 2022. So then we have a 2021, 2022, and a 2023.
I would be happy to amend my motion, Madam Chair.
Sure, that sounds great, Ed. Thank you for amending it.
Second.
Second by Paul with the amendment. Okay, thanks so much for clarifying that. And as soon as we take this vote, we'll move into the public hearing on the tax classification. All in favor of appointing?
Madam Chair, sorry, just another question.
Sure.
So with the amended motion, just to clarify, are we voting to appoint John Murray to a term ending in 2022 and Amanda Abbott to the term ending in 2021? Mr. Dabrowski, is that the intention?
It is.
I assume
Okay,
so.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks for clarifying, Jonathan. So Mr. Murray ending in 2022, Amanda, and I'm so sorry, I don't have her last name in front of me, ending in 2021.
Abbott.
Abbott.
Abbott, thank you. All those in favor? Myself, yes. Ed?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Now we will go into the public hearing for the tax classification. I need a roll call vote to enter the public hearing. I, Ed.
Aye.
Peter? Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will send this right over to Victor, or Steve, do you do a intro?
I'll take it from here if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Completely able to introduce yourself.
I have full faith and confidence in Victor. You take it.
All right, if we could throw the presentation up on the screen. I apologize. I've had some computer issues and am unable to share my screen. Go up to,
There you go.
okay, beautiful picture. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present all the information we need to classify property and determine a tax factor. Next slide. Tonight, we're here to discuss the selection of a minimum residential factor, selection of an open space discount, granting of a residential exemption, and granting of a small commercial exemption. Next slide, please. A residential factor of 1 would yield a single tax rate of $14.11 per thousand of value. We arrive at that by dividing the total tax levy by the total taxable value of the town. However, Chapter 200 allows Wakefield to select a factor less than 1, thereby shifting more of the tax burden onto the commercial, industrial, and personal classes of property. Historically, Wakefield has chosen the maximum allowable shift factor to afford residential taxpayers the lowest possible share of the tax burden allowed by state law. Next slide, please. For the past several years, the town council has opted to raise the tax levy less than our Proposition 2.5 limit. This action has saved residential taxpayers an estimated $55 a year in real estate taxes. However, due to current conditions and stressors on both state and local sources of revenue, it is recommended we go to our full tax levy limit to ensure the uninterrupted continuation of town services for fiscal year 2021. Putting that out there because this presentation is based on this 1 year, hopefully, going to the full tax levy. Next, please. Typically, I present 4 options just to give you an idea of what things would look like. And at a typical shift of 1.75, the residential tax rate is estimated to be $12.74, and the commercial tax rate is estimated to be $24.68. Again, this is the best estimate. These can change a penny or two either way during the tax rate recap process with the state. Next, please. Now, on to a wonderful topic, Wakefield senior discounts. In our first year of offering the exemption, we had 172 applications received, and 162 applications were approved. The median amount granted was $1,130, which was the maximum amount afforded under the circuit breaker income tax credit by the state. The minimum amount was $52. The average amount was $1,051. This exemption added 4 cents to the residential tax rate, which translates into an increase of $23.52 on the average single-family tax bill to help our seniors continue to remain independent and age in place. Application denials included those with excessive assets, co-applicant age, and or real estate trust interest issues. The folks that received the maximum amount of $1,130 will see an approximate 15% reduction in real estate taxes based on our average single-family value. And given the late timing for the state approval, we had such a tremendous partner in Judy Luciano and all the Council of Aging staff to help get the word out, from delivering sandwiches to hosting times on the common to get the word out for seniors. our numbers would not be this robust if it wasn't for their direct assistance. I can't thank them enough. Before I move on, does anyone have any questions about the senior discount program? Okay, I like it. Next, please. The average single family for fiscal 2020 will be $588,200. And as you can see, at our usual 1.75 shift, the average single family tax bill is estimated to be $7,494. By going the maximum allowable shift instead of no shift at all, it results in an $823 savings for the average single family taxpayer. Next, please. The average commercial value is $1,367,000. And again, at 1.75, the estimated tax bill would be $33,738. Next, please. At the maximum allowable shift with a selected minimum residential factor of 0.900579, our estimated tax rates will be $12.74 per thousand residential and $24.68 commercial, industrial, and personal. And again, they can change a penny or two through the approval process. Next, please. The average single family tax bill from 2020 to 2021, you can see the value went up about 5.8% from 556 to 588. Tax rate went down a little bit, while the average tax bill, single family tax bill, did go up 5.5%. It's important to note, to get us to compare apples to apples, included in that 5.5% is the cost of senior tax relief that we all approved in town. And unfortunately having to go to the levy limit. So if you took that amount out of that, the actual tax increase is approximately 4.4%, which historically is in line with many of our prior years. The commercial value went up slightly. The tax rate's going to come down a little bit, and the average tax bill is going to stay, commercial property stay basically the same, plus or minus $20. Next, please. For fiscal 2021, it's the 7th year of the full debt exclusion for the new Galvin Middle School. Can I say new anymore? Scratch new. We'll call it Galvin Middle School. Debt exclusion adds just under $2.5 million to our total tax levy. It adds 40 cents to the residential tax rate, or $236 to the average single family tax bill. It adds 76 cents to the commercial and industrial and personal rate, or $1,039 to the average commercial bill. Next, please. Sales activity. I've never had this happen. The reason we're comparing 18 to 19, 2019 home sales were used to set values for fiscal year 2021. And I checked this data more than once. We had 220 single-family home sales for both 18 and 19 in Wakefield. Days on the market dipped slightly, and the average sale price was up a little over 3%. Next, please. Another issue we have to consider is an open space discount. It's land that is not otherwise classified and which is not taxable under the provisions of chapters 61A or 61B, or taxable under a permanent conservation restriction, not held for the production of income, but maintained in an open and natural condition, which contributes significantly to the benefit and enjoyment of the public. A maximum exemption of 25% may be adopted. However, the town has never voted for such a discount since no properties have ever been identified which fulfills this section. Next. A residential exemption of up to 35% of average residential value. could be adopted. It's only been done in a handful of communities, including Boston, Cambridge, Chelsea, and Brookline. The way it works is you raise the residential tax rate substantially before any discount. And when you do that, approximately 30% of the homes would shoulder the discount for everybody else. And in a community like ours, most homes in Wakefield are owner occupied anyways. Next, please. Small commercial exemption. An exemption of up to 10% of the property valuation for commercial properties only. Eligible businesses cannot have more than 10 employees as certified by the Department of Employment and Training. Building value cannot exceed $1 million. One business in a building could not qualify unless every business qualified. The exemption goes to the building owner, who may not necessarily be the business owner. And, we're really unaware of any businesses that may qualify for this type of exemption. Next. And here's how we stack up against our immediate competition. Linfield, Reading, ooh, that Reading, I'll tell you. Saugus, Stoneham, and Melrose. This information is from 2020 because 2021 rates and values haven't been set yet. Next, please. And here's just here's how our average single-family tax bills have fared since 2006, which coincidentally is the first fiscal year that I took over. So, and next, please. And again, similarly for the average commercial tax bill, 2003 to present. Next, please. This slide denotes the tax shift of our surrounding communities. As you can see, Wakefield goes to full 175%. Linfield does something a little less. Reading is barely a shift. Saugus goes to 175. Stoneham goes to 175. And Melrose doesn't quite get to 175. And unless that's the last page, which, yes, it is. Does anyone have any questions?
Victor, before anyone asks questions, I just want to clarify, because I think we blew through it very quickly, that Julie Smith-Galvin made the motion to go into public meeting, and Paul seconded it. Does that sound accurate? My fellow counselor?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. I just want that for the record.
Sure.
Does the board have any questions for Victor before we go to the public? Paul, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Then Ed.
Victor, a real quick question, sir. Based on the information that you provided today, and you did a great job as usual, two questions. I just want to make sure I understood everything correctly. By giving the senior break, we are incurring per residence an increase of $23.52, correct?
Yes, because the the Wakefield senior discount is funded through the tax base, which creates for me a bit of additional math work to determine how much to shift within the residential class.
Okay, thank you. And so based upon your numbers, a home valued at $588, the tax would be roughly $7,600. If I saw the numbers correctly.
Yeah, around 75, yep.
Okay, so in addition to that 75, you would add the 23 and the 236 for the Galvin, correct?
No, those numbers are already in the estimated tax amount.
Okay, very good. Thank you for the clarification, because I wanted to make sure that everybody understood that it's no additional, it's part of the existing tax rate. Now, you only started in 2006, you said. Is there a way of you getting information back to say like 1990?
Whatever's on the state website.
Okay. Great job doing the presentation tonight, sir. Thank you again for your service. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Sure, thanks, Paul. Ed, I know you had your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Victor, for this really comprehensive presentation as you do every year. And looking at these rates, I understand that we're doing the maximum shift. And so if we didn't do the maximum shift between residential and commercial, there would be a higher tax amount. I get that. But in reality, I feel like that's something that we've at least in recent years done on a pretty regular basis. So I don't think that that's necessarily the best barometer for us. For me, I am adamantly opposed to the idea of going to the 2.5%. The idea of increasing with a 6% tax increase at a time when people in our community are having trouble even paying their current tax bills because of the economic uncertainty that we're all going through is just unfathomable. And I don't think that that's the sort of burden we should be placing on our taxpayers. It behooves us to figure out how we have to readjust perhaps and spend within our means, because that's ultimately what we need to do. And the idea that there's economic uncertainty, sure, we know that, but we also know that the majority of our budget isn't funded through state aid, fortunately. So, and I know Mr. Mayo has raised this previously, so unlike some other communities that are heavily dependent upon the aid that comes in from the state in order to manage, operating expenses, we're in a different position. And I guess it's one of the few advantages of being, I'll argue, shortchanged in state aid, especially on the school side. But that being said, we should be able to weather this with more stability than a lot of other communities that are so dependent upon state aid. And we also don't know at this point what the state aid is going to look like. And so I don't see it appropriate or prudent for us to have a 6% tax increase in the middle of a pandemic when people are out of work, trying to figure out how to make ends meet, when we have uncertainty about state aid that very well could land us in a pretty comparable position to where we've been historically. And even if we're not, that's such a small component, it's not going to fundamentally change the way we do budgeting. And if we need to make certain reevaluations of certain line items, then we'll have to do that. We also have reserves for occasions like this when we have a 100-year pandemic that we're dealing with. So the idea of a nearly 6% increase, 5.8% increase is just absolutely unfathomable. I will not be voting to support this. Thank you.
Jonathan, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Santinello. I really appreciate the presentation and the thought that goes into it. I do want to also highlight, and I'm glad you mentioned the Council on Aging and Judy Liciano for her great work. It is great to see the numbers that we've seen on the senior property tax exemption. And I don't think there's anyone on the council and really anyone sort of in town government that isn't thrilled that that's something that we've been able to move forward with this year. So thank you for being the thought leader on that and for partnering with Judy to make sure that we were able to get the word out. I'm supportive of the proposal that you've put forward, and have to respectfully disagree with Councillor Dombrowski. That we should be looking at a rate that is below the 2.5% tax levy. While we are in a better fiscal position than most communities, we have had to make some tough choices already. We're delaying some of our capital spending. We've made some reductions to our budgets, and we are looking at taking money out of free cash, not only for fiscal 2021 and likely fiscal 2022, but potentially the next few years beyond that. And so, for me, I want to make sure that we don't find ourselves in a position this year or in the coming years where we have to dig deeper and where we have to look at, laying off teachers and laying off firefighters and police officers. And so I think from a fiscal prudence standpoint, going up to the 2.5% is really important this year. I also think that as we talk about easing the burden on people in town, we've got to recognize that doing so by just reducing the tax rate actually is a pretty regressive way of doing it. So, just by way of illustration, if we took the reduction that we made last year, where we came in about 0.5% below the 2.5% levy limit, and we applied that to a couple of houses in my neighborhood, you get very different results. So, I looked up the assessed value for one house near me. It's a 6,000 square foot, 5-bedroom house assessed at $1.6 million. That 0.5% decrease relative to the tax levy gives them about $102 extra a year. By contrast, another house near them, a 1,200 square foot 2-bedroom house that's assessed at $400,000, gets $25 per year. You know, I don't think either of those are meaningful amounts, and certainly getting $100 back on their tax bill for someone who's living in a $1.6 million house, I'm guessing is probably not material for them. Again, I understand that people are struggling, and I think the way that we address that is by doing some of the more targeted programs that we've done, like the senior property tax exemption, like the other abatement opportunities that we have available. And certainly as a town council and as a body, I hope that we spend some time in the next year really making sure that we make sure residents are aware of those activities, they're aware of those opportunities and take advantage of them if the need is there. So thank you. I appreciate the work that you've done, and I'll be voting to support this.
Any other members of the council? Paul Donaco. Unmute, Paul.
Thank you. Victor, could you give me some additional information, please, based upon comments from Ed and Jonathan with their statement? If we did not go with your recommendation and stayed status quo, what would the tax rate be? You must have that number.
I do not.
Oh, okay. So, okay.
Historically and respectfully, tax levy amount is something that really isn't discussed at classification. We have the 4 questions that we have to answer. Typically, the discussions about tax levy happen a great amount of time before this.
Okay.
And basically, I'm told that we want to do this, we want to do that, and I model it out. That's why I, did not prepare an alternative discussion to do a deep dive in, if we reduce the levy by, 50,000, 100,000, and so on and so forth. So I apologize.
No apology necessary. So I'd like to direct the next one to Mr. Mayo. So Steve, when you and I talked about the tax rate and this potentially coming in, putting us at the full 2.5%, we're talking just for 2021 right now. I mean, 2021 right now, correct?
Correct. Every year we look at this again.
So next year, the sitting council can review the tax rate again and decide they want to go back to the way it was prior to this vote.
Right.
Could that happen?
Oh yeah, that can happen every year. Every year, that's the exercise that we've gone through for the last forever.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know the numbers, and I'm not sure if you can provide them. So, if 6% is the actual percentage, would that be what you would go backwards next year? 6%?
If I may, the actual tax dollar increase is 5.5%, but that also includes the senior tax relief and going the full 2.5%. When you separate those two numbers out, the real tax increase comparing to the tax levy that was established last year,
Right.
4.4%.
Okay, so 4.4%. So next year, when they're discussing 2022, they could say we want to go backwards 4.4%.
It's actually a little bit different.
It depends on a lot of factors, what values come in at, new growth. There's a lot of things that will how commercial values do. All those things will come to play.
Right. So in essence, though, in 2022 they can vote not to do the full 2.5%.
Yeah, and the town council can also vote not to do the full shift
Okay.
to the commercial. Every year, that's a discussion that we have.
Okay. I thank you both for your information. Thank you.
Jonathan, I see your hand. Let me just quickly add that I support Victor's proposition after speaking with Steve watching your presentation. And last year, I was the deciding vote to not go as high as you had recommended, Victor, because it was right before COVID and we were, using the word flush is a little aggressive, but we were in a really good place. And I thought it is a show of good faith that we could take a little bit of that burden off of the homeowners. And it really was a little burden. Does it mean a lot to different people? Without a doubt. But Jonathan's point about what we can do, the services we can provide, I think is really important. So for that reason, I am supporting the 2.5 shift. Let's see, Peter, and then Jonathan.
See how many years have we been under 2.5?
So how many years have we been under 2.5, Victor?
7 or 8, I
Yeah.
believe.
7 or 8 years. And, you know, sometimes, if I can jump in, sometimes we went 2.1, sometimes 2.2, sometimes 2.3, but it really all depended upon where we were at the time with revenues, with reserves. And as I mentioned, I think in our last meeting, 10 days ago, whenever it was, is that we're looking at potentially and forecasting with the Finance Committee, potentially drawing down those reserves at a, you know, at a steady clip over the next few years as we come out of the pandemic. Now, a lot of things might change, and we'll review it next year, as we do every year, and the year after that. But as I said to board members who talked to me, I'm very proud that we were able to do it in years before. This is not prudent to do it this year, in my humble opinion. But I'm most proud of the fact that, what was it, 162 or 150 families that really needed the help got it. And town meeting voted for that, knowing that your own taxes may go up a few dollars to help their fellow citizens. So, you know, the ones that really need it got maybe $1,100 break on their taxes so they can live in their home. So I recommend that you do go with the full levy. Thank you.
Jonathan.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I just actually, on a slightly different topic, wanted to connect this discussion back to some other discussions that we've had recently. And, you know, Victor, it was helpful to look on the last couple of pages of your presentation to see sort of the history of both average residential property values and average commercial property values. And one of the things that struck me is if you go back to 2008, 2009, as we're coming out of the Great Recession, we've seen some pretty substantial increases in residential property values in that time. But if you look at commercial property values, the average commercial property value's basically been flat. It kind of dipped a bit and then has recovered a little bit. But we've actually never recovered to the value that we saw in 2009, I believe, was kind of the high water mark. And, you know, I mention this because, you know, we were fortunate to have the support of the town at town meeting to hire an economic and community development officer. And I think, you know, looking at the property values highlights one of the reasons why that's an opportunity for us. I mean, ultimately, for us to be able to manage the residential tax burden, we've got to make sure that we have growth in our commercial real estate base, so that we have a commercial base to be able to tax. And I think the best thing that we can do to help manage increases in residential taxes in future years is get that economic and community development officer on board, work with them, with the Economic Development Council that we've talked about, get a plan in place to really market Wakefield as a destination for commercial investment, so that we're able to balance our tax base between residents and commercial. So just something else I wanted to highlight, you know, more as the long-term opportunity for us as we think about how do we address the tax question in future years.
Thank you, Jonathan. Not seeing any other comments from the board. Does anyone from the public have any questions or comments at this time? And if you could raise your hand, your little blue hand, that's awesome. And if you can't, just wave and someone will grab you. All right, I don't see any waving or little blue hands. Excellent. So now I need to have motions and seconds on 4 separate motions. Steve, we take these individually, is that correct? Mute.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay,
Madam
yes,
Chair.
so Victor, sorry, I wasn't seeing you shake your head beside me. Okay, if I could please have a motion and a second for the first vote, which is a vote for a minimum residential factor of 0.900579, which will maintain a shift factor of 1.75.
So moved.
So moved by
Second.
Paul, seconded by Jonathan. Roll call vote, myself, aye. Ed?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair, can I clarify something?
Yes, of course.
Could you just, or maybe Victor, clarify, the maximum shift factor is distinguishable from the 2.5%, correct?
Tax levy is, has nothing to do with these votes. That factor will shift to 1.75.
Right, which is the maximum allowable for our residents. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Unanimous on that vote. I need a motion and a second for the second vote, which is a no vote on residential exemptions.
And Peter has his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Peter. Oh, I didn't get your vote.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Peter. You were tucked in that corner. I need to be more organized. Peter, what's your vote? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay, I'm so sorry. So unanimous, including Peter. Our second vote is a no vote on residential exception. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Moved by Paul,
Second.
seconded by Jonathan. Myself, yes. Ed?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Thank you. Unanimous on the second vote. The third vote we need to take is a no vote on open space discount.
So moved.
Moved by Paul,
Second.
seconded by Jonathan. Roll call. Myself, yes. Ed?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Paul.
Yes.
And the last tax vote is a no vote on small commercial exemption. Motion and a second, please.
So moved.
Moved by Paul,
Second.
seconded by Jonathan. Roll call vote. Myself, aye. Ed?
Yes.
I could read lips, so I was counting you as a yes. Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Paul.
Yes.
Okay. Are we done with you, Victor, or?
I think so. Thank you so much,
All you
folks.
need to do, Madam Chair, is close the public hearing.
Exactly. Victor, thank you so much. As always, you are the best and so informative and organized. Thank you. Could I please have a motion and a second to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Moved by Paul.
Second.
Second by Julie. Myself, yes. Ed?
Aye.
Peter?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
And Paul.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. So now we are just a few minutes late, not too bad. We are moving into our joint meeting with our school committee colleagues. And the first is to appoint 2 openings to the school committee as a joint committee. And then we'll move on to the next vote with regard to the Human Rights Commission. Before we get into the appointment process, Steve, did you want to say anything?
Yes, Madam Chair, if I could say a few words and just take a moment of personal privilege here.
Yeah.
I do want to thank my brother-in-law, Chris Callahan, who I think is on the line tonight,
Yes.
for his 15 years of service to the school committee. That's quite a long time. And I know that he spent countless of hours working for the betterment of the children of Wakefield, students of Wakefield. He also was very, very instrumental in the Permanent Building Committee, worked very hard on the Galvin School. I like to still call it the new Galvin School. The Walton School renovations and the Greenwood School current roof and other reservations. And I think when you think about Chris, that the main principle that he stood for through all these years on the school committee was that he wanted to make sure that every student, from whatever walk of life, whatever category they were in, whatever their background was, what they wanted to do, they were all treated fairly and equitably. And I know that was something that school committee members certainly heard him say over the years. I got to say that we had lots of discussions about the school department over the years, a number of them at the island, and Chris knows where the island is. And even if we, and others of you know what the island is too, even if we disagreed, and occasionally we did, usually on the school budget, but we were not, it was never disagreeable. And I think that's a good lesson for everyone today. So Chris, I want to thank you personally for all your years of service to the town and to the students of Wakefield. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, you're muted. Did you want to say something? You're good. Thank you so much, Chris, absolutely, for your service. And just to explain to the public why we're having a joint meeting to appoint two school committee members. When members leave in the middle of their term, that's what our charter indicates, that we need to have a joint committee to appoint those. So I'll just start out very briefly, and then I'll kick it right over to the school committee to add in. But we have such an impressive array of candidates that have applied. Sometimes when we have to convince people to run, Mike Boudreau, in dragging people to run, this was really great to see the quality in character of those who put their names in. So thank you all. And I will defer to the school committee to just talk about what you're looking for. And this is kind of your gig. We're just doing it jointly with you.
Thank you, Ann. I'd just like to call, we have an agenda that we're following as well this evening, so I will call my portion of this meeting to order. And I appreciate your points as well. And I would like to take this time as well to thank the 8 applicants who did send in their resume for the 2 vacant seats on the school committee. And it is really encouraging to see such a big interest in the school committee as well as public service. And I do have just a very brief comment that I would like to share. I recently started sort of defining my time on the school committee as before COVID and during COVID. Of course, before COVID, we all participated in very important work that included the creation of the school budget, negotiating and bargaining teacher and staff contracts, updating policies, successfully obtaining approval for the MSBA for a new high school, improving district communications, special education services, and collaborating with our leaders of the MECO program, just to name a few of some of the important things that we do on the school committee. However, in the midst of this pandemic, Wakefield has been faced with a wide variety of unprecedented challenges, starting with the decision to close schools back in March, to the daunting task of safely reopening schools this fall. The school committee has been faced with many new issues that directly affect the well-being of our students. The school committee has been, our students, faculty, and staff, such as public health and safety concerns, remote and hybrid learning, technology challenges, bus safety, air quality, social and emotional wellness of our students, special education issues, and budgetary requirements. These issues are daily reminders of the important work our district leaders, teachers, and the school committee face every day, and it's immensely important that we collaborate together to continue to do what's best for the students and families of Wakefield as we navigate through these very difficult, uncertain times. So with that, I am sort of looking at this meeting through an iPad, so I don't have the biggest screen. So if, Ann, if you can see everybody as well, if there's anyone from the school committee who would like to participate, because I don't see any of my members on the screen, that'd be great.
First, I need to unmute myself. I can see everyone, so that's no problem at all, Amy.
Thank you.
See Mike Boudreau waving his hand.
Excellent, thanks.
know that's pretty unusual for the school committee to see me wave my hand and the administration. And I do blame Ann completely for me joining the school
I
committee.
take it.
But my deepest appreciation, it has been a great experience with great people on both the school committee as well as the administration side. It's an incredibly dedicated group. And I agree, the choices were very, very difficult. It's a good problem to have when you have such a difficult time coming up with the candidates. So I want to also applaud all those who volunteered. If they were running when I was running, I probably wouldn't be here in front of you. They're much more qualified than I am. Thank you.
Sure, Mike. Does anyone else have any points to add? Sure, Colleen, and then Tom.
Hi, yeah, thank you, Anne and Amy. I just wanted to add to that we do have, you know, in the spring and come January, you know, when we all sort of gather around campaigning and whatnot, that I encourage those applicants who put forth their interest to please think about running, you know, for one of the, we have many seats available in, you know, varying terms. So we have a 1-year seat, a 2-year seat, 2 3-year seats up for election. And while campaigning is not always, you know, top on everybody's list of things to do that they enjoy doing, it's an important part of the process. This is a very unique situation, and I would just encourage those applicants to please consider doing that again come the new year. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Colleen. Tom Markham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good evening. I would certainly, it's a pleasure to be with everyone tonight under this interesting, you know, circumstances. I too want to just to support what both Amy Purcell and Colleen Guida said, but put a particular high point on a couple of the really emerging, and I'm going to call almost crisis management. I don't want to exaggerate, but we are in such extraordinary times that, you know, every day that faces the school district, or every day, frankly, that faces the town and the state, we're often unsure, right, of what the morning is going to bring, what the afternoon's going to bring. In these extraordinary times, much like obviously the work going on at Town Hall and Town Council to support our town in general, we are at a very hectic pace. There is an awful lot of challenging work and challenging decisions that are before us. I guess part of my hope and my appeal is that, you know, of the type of things that are before us and before the school committee and the school district in the next really 6 months or thereabouts between, say, now and the end of April when election occurs, are really a need for some stopgap needs. We're not really looking at extraordinary long-term work. We are continuing to really face day-to-day challenges. We are not living in ordinary times. Where I'm going with this is really a call for experience, a call for depth, a call for some appreciation of the collective bargaining process, what it means to have, you know, these. We have just, we're going to approve, or we're going to consider later tonight, 2 more memorandums of understanding with our collective bargaining units regarding extraordinary working conditions, all of the things that go into that. And what I'm just saying is I was also, like my 2 colleagues before me, pleased to see that we had such an array of quality applicants in the 8 that we did get. I'm just hopeful that the type of needs that we have in these extraordinary times are really thought through, and in both the votes that we're casting tonight, as well as, frankly, the work ahead for whoever happens to win this evening. This isn't an appeal for any 1 or 2 individuals. It's sort of an outline of the types of things that are truly facing lots of unknowns. And lots of very interesting, you know, interactions. So I just wanted to, when we have this opportunity so rarely, to be able to speak, to the community at large about many of the things facing the school district. And I appreciate the opportunity to do so. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Tom. Does any other member of the school committee wish to address before we get into nominations? I'm sorry, I was looking at the little blue hand. Anyone else raising their hand? Nope. Okay. So the process for nominations and voting, which Amy and I had discussed, we've run it by Tom Mullen, who has said it's absolutely fine and within the process for voting at this joint meeting. So we'll take nominations. Anyone, all can be nominated, whoever puts forth nominations in seconds, and then we'll have discussions about folks. And then we'll go around to each of the school committee members and town council to put forth 2 names. If after that first vote, we get 2 folks who have at least 7 or more votes, I guess we have our members. If we have 1, that person steps away and is on the committee, and then we'll take a second vote for that second seat. So it's pretty clean. I've written everyone's name down, and I'll tally, as well as I'm sure the clerks will do it also. So at this point, I would take nominations. Tom, I saw your hand.
Sure.
And then Colleen, then Amy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, I would like to put into consideration Darcy Burns.
Great. Thank you. So is there a second for Darcy? Second. Excellent. So Darcy has a motion and a nomination to be presented and a second. Colleen and then Amy.
I am nominating Greg Liakos.
Thank you. Is there a second for Greg? Second by Paul. Thank you. Amy.
I'd like to nominate Amy Lehman.
Sure. Amy Lehman nominated. Is there a second? Second, Paul Donaco. Thank you. Mike Bedreau.
I would like to nominate Michelle Toppy.
Thank you. Is there a second for Michelle? Second by Paul Donaco. Thank you. Any other, I'm looking at my blue hands, but it looks like everyone's just waving. Any other nominations to be entered? Susie, you're muted, maybe?
Not anymore.
No, okay.
I think, and I don't know where the blue hands are, so I apologize. And
no
obviously
worries.
you can find them. I'd like to nominate Stephen Ingalls.
Thank you. Great. Second for Stephen. Second by Paul. Any other nominations at this point? Okay. All right. It looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 folks nominated. Darcy Burns, Greg Liakos, Stephen Ingalls, Amy Lehman, and Michelle Toppy. And as echoed what everyone said, for those even not nominated, the credentials were excellent, and we hope that you'll still stay involved in the system and think about running in April. So I would start the discussion. I guess, Amy Purcell, folks can just start talking about anyone at this point, any single candidates. Does anyone want to jump in?
I can start.
Sure.
In regards to Amy Lehman, I just would like to show my support in regards to the fact that Amy has been very involved in the school committee, sort of behind the scenes. When I started running for school committee a few years ago, that's when I first met her. And, I learned very quickly that behind the scenes, she's heavily involved in coming to our meetings a lot before COVID. And now, of course, joining our meetings online via Zoom. She's also reached out to me a number of times to show her support and interest, actually, in meeting with Senator Lewis to discuss the Chapter 70 funding, and also to have an additional meeting with Senator Lewis's aide to continue those talks about the Chapter 70 funding. You know, and sometimes during this pandemic, she would text me and say, you know, are you planning on joining that Zoom that Jeff Riley is having, like in the town hall setting, and things that that show that Amy is heavily involved in the school committee. And I also think another important thing to note is that she has an elementary student. I think she's at the Walton, and I think that bringing that sort of perspective for students at the primary grade level is important to bring to the table. And I also know that she has a huge interest in special education as well, which is, you know, things that we certainly need to be aware of, especially now during this pandemic. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. Does anyone else want to? Susie?
Actually, I'd like to echo much of what Amy just said about Amy Lehman. Amy Purcell, Amy Lehman, and I have spent many an hour digging into Chapter 70 funding on our own, trying to understand it, meeting, as Amy Purcell said, meeting with Senator Lewis, meeting with his aide, and we were actually really making some good progress, and then COVID hit, and we kind of had to stop. But she spent hours of her time really trying to understand what was going on along with the two of us, which really just speaks volumes to her commitment. And the other thing about Amy is, like, she really digs in. She's educated, she reads, she shares information. As Amy said, she'll often kind of ping the two of us and say, hey, are you going to that thing or that webinar? And I'll be like, God, I didn't even know about that webinar. Thank God Amy told me about it. You know, she's thorough, and she's just super knowledgeable. And the other point that Amy Purcell made is she's got the ties into the elementary community that I don't believe any of us that are now on the committee have. And so she's got kind of a network that we're generally missing as a committee at the moment. So I feel like Amy Lehman is a really great candidate and has shown her commitment well before COVID hit, with just being interested and knowledgeable and committed. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Paul, I saw your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How do we want to just speak about one or multiple?
No, you can talk about multiple. We don't have to go one by one at all.
Okay, thank you. So this is a very unique experience for myself going forward, because normally it's just one on a board of this size, but we have the opportunity to now appoint two. Typically, I would have more interaction with individuals on this, but I did reach out to the chair of the school committee and had a nice discussion with Amy on her thoughts. I did have the opportunity to speak to one of my fellow counselors and have, you know, a little bit more outreach, but it forced me to actually go through all the resumes and use that information in order to see which candidates I could recommend or speak to on this process. So the first one that came to light was Darcy Burns' resume. She knocked it out of the park. You could be praising her all day long, and it would be, you know, too little at this point. But I could fully support Darcy Burns as one of my two votes. I'm not going to go into detail as much as Susie and Amy did on Amy Lehman, but I've had the opportunity to work with her. I know how detail orientated she is. I know how much special needs means to her and to her family. I could also support her as a candidate to the school committee as well too. So I don't want to take up too much time here, but just those two alone, I would definitely be in support of. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. I'll jump in next, and then I see Mike. Just get myself out of the way. I have known Darcy for years. I think, and it's interesting, I knew her for a long time before I knew what her resume looked like, which I think is a great thing. So I knew her in a very casual, our children are the same age. She is humble, she is gracious, but I think it would be really hard not to grab a PhD in education to put on the school committee, especially one who, in the middle of COVID with her own company, had to pivot quickly to deliver remote education to school systems in this state and otherwise, to teach them and to train them. And so I think she brings that whole COVID awareness an educational background, and she's a lovely person, which always helps to have someone collegial and collaborative on the board. So I would, Darcy, I feel, is a really strong candidate. The second candidate is tough for me because I think everyone is so qualified. My one concern is having someone, two people who aren't up to speed, who are new on the school committee when we really are still in the throes of this pandemic, and it's not going to change. Any of us with children who are being affected by this know that this isn't going to change. And I thought naively that when my daughter was a senior last year, that she wouldn't be as affected as last year's seniors. These seniors are absolutely, they're in worse shape. What their experience is going to be, and it's breaking my heart. And as someone who's in education, I understand that having someone with some experience going through, even union issues. So I am leaning towards Greg for that purpose, although the other candidates are outstanding. So I just wanted to give my thoughts on that. Mike Boudreau.
Yeah, I'll jump on the Darcy parade for just a minute. I don't know Darcy. I was overwhelmed when I saw her background, and certainly humbled. And to me, that was the easiest selection. Number two was very difficult for me. And Amy Lehman was certainly one that was nip and tuck for me. And I considered Greg as well. I kind of looked at this as bringing two people in who hopefully have kind of a leg up and jumpstart to hopefully becoming members next April when they go through the full election as well. And I looked for diversity in our members on the school committee, because I think having different perspectives is helpful to coming up with better solutions ultimately. And it was for that reason, and it was extraordinarily close to me personally, that I picked Michelle, who I have known personally for a long time, has been very active in volunteerism. I think volunteerism is a big component of coming into this role and having some background in that you've shown a history of giving back to the community as well. So that was sort of my tiebreaker with Michelle, but Amy is an extremely well-deserving candidate as well. So that was how I came up with my choice. Thank you.
Jonathan, I'm going to go to you next. I see your hand.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to start by sort of repeating a lot of everyone said, and just that as I look at this pool of candidates and the 5 individuals that were nominated, there really are no bad choices. And, I've had the opportunity to work closely with, Greg Liakos on some issues. My children actually are the same age, or 2 of my children are the same age as Amy Lehman's children. And so I've worked with her on issues at the Walton, and certainly talking to Darcy, talking to Stephen, reading about Michelle. At the end of the day, there's no one on the list of 5 candidates that's been nominated this evening that I would have any discomfort whatsoever in appointing to the school committee. And believe me, that's a nice problem to have. I'm going to speak in favor of 2 individuals. One is Darcy Burns. I think Dr. Burns' resume speaks for itself, and I think there's a level of expertise there that is incredibly beneficial for the town. The other individual, I'd like to support is Greg Liakos. Mr. Markham mentioned in his remarks, we are at sort of an extraordinary time. And, we're at a time where there's a fair amount of transition in the school committee. I think having the opportunity to bring someone like Greg, who had 2 successful terms in the school committee, who's been voted on in the past by the residents of Wakefield and who's able to hit the ground running, really provides a lot of benefit, particularly for, the relative short time of this appointment. As we've talked about, whoever does get appointed does have to run again if they want to continue to serve. And so knowing that, this might be a 7th-month gig, having someone like Greg who's able to step in and understand the issues really quickly, I think is important. So, those are the individuals who, I'm supporting for this, but, certainly not without a lot of respect for Amy, for Stephen, and for Michelle, and certainly without any concerns if any of them get appointed to the school committee. I think they'd all be excellent.
Thanks, Jonathan. I see 2 counselors with their hands raised, but I want to go to a school committee member. Susie?
So I did want to speak a little bit more about my nomination with Stephen Ingalls. Of all the applicants, Stephen was, well, I don't know many of the applicants, but I did not know Stephen until I spoke with him. He was one of a few of the applicants who reached out and asked to speak with me, just to kind of talk through what is it like, what are the issues. And I found him to be incredibly educated and passionate about serving. He's a parent, he's a Woodville parent of young children. And he's been thinking about this and about making the leap, and I know what that's like, having been a person that was trying to figure out when is the right time, as we all have. And I really enjoyed my conversation with him. I thought he would be very connected, again, as I said, the same kind of with Amy, as connected to the elementary community, which we don't have kind of those connections at the moment. And I do think that during this time of crisis, kind of having our feelers out with different kind of levels of parents is really important, because it's a difficult time and there's a lot of feedback to be gathered. And so I think we need the committee connected kind of at all levels. And so I enjoyed my conversation with him. I felt like he understood what he was getting into. He was concerned about things kind of beyond COVID. He was concerned about kind of better communication, and I felt like he was just a really good match. And so that's why I nominated Stephen. Interestingly, I am torn about my votes, though. So I will say it's a difficult. I came into this saying I wanted to give my votes to people who wanted a chance to try out being on school committee, and to hopefully kind of encourage them to then run when the time came. And so Stephen was very, as was Amy, kind of interesting to me, because they both are committed to running in the future, and that they look at this as kind of a springboard. But I do also understand kind of the discussion around the benefit that a candidate like Greg could bring with just being able to walk right in and jump in, because he knows the people, he knows the process. While he's been off the committee for a number of months now, it would be relatively easy for him to jump in. And I do worry about how to onboard new committee members in a way that they will feel effective. And so at this very moment, I don't even know who my 2 votes are going to. I wanted to listen to this conversation, and but I did want to nominate Stephen in that I felt like he brings a lot of energy and excitement and enthusiasm, and has a good sense of kind of what the issues are. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Susie. I would, so Peter has asked me to just speak for him very briefly. He's waving. I'll be his wingman today, super happily. He is supporting Amy Lehman and Greg Liakos. And he indicated that from all his town dealings with both over the years in Wakefield, he finds their commitment level very high, and would enjoy working with them across the aisle, so to speak. Is that good, Peter? Okay, thank you. Okay. Before I go to Ed, Colleen. Excellent. Colleen, you want to jump in?
You're on mute, Colleen.
Sorry about that. This conversation is indicative of how we have our meetings. So I hope that that's clear to the public. We collaborate very well together and we want the best for our committee. Right now, Susie, you like hit the nail on the head. I've been back and forth, because we have such great applicants in front of us and we are so fortunate to be able to have this discussion. Never thought that we'd get this number of applicants after an election last spring when we, we're lucky enough to have Mike, but anyway, that being said, I'm equally as torn, but over the past few days, I've really thought about the times that we are in right now and the unique position that we're filling right now for 7 months. I have had the opportunity to work with Greg for the last 2 years of my term. Before that, he was always well known to me. Greg stands out, his character stands out to me as someone who embodies the professional experience and background, but is extremely empathetic, compassionate, respectful, open-minded. Those are just some of the qualities that come to my mind when I think of Greg Liakos. He's always been approachable to me before I was on school committee, but then after, always reaching out to see if he could be of support or just to have a conversation. In the last year or so, my committee members and administrators can remind us how long it's been, but we have been on Labor Relations Subcommittee together. Greg had come in to fill another vacancy that we had, and he exhibits the same kind of behavior in that setting. We met for many, many, many months. It was long, productive, intense at times, and Greg was always composed, professional, heartfelt, and respectful. And I feel like right now, in the times that we have, we are in an intense period right now. We meet constantly, we meet because we have to, we meet because we want to, we meet because we need to get through these times. And I think that's an important piece of this because time commitment is important. And for someone to be able to come in and do the hard work that we're doing and understand the work that we're doing, like Susie mentioned, onboarding is really, really important. Sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle. With someone like Greg, he's paying attention behind the scenes right now, has been over the course of us entering into this COVID period. And he will be able to resume his role almost seamlessly, in my opinion. My second choice would be for Darcy Burns as well. I'm not sure I can say anything more than has already been said, except for I had a conversation with her at my house. And just to give you a little bit of a personal thing, Darcy sat down with my son who is interested in special education and had an unbelievable conversation with him. Her background, her knowledge, but then her ability to open herself up to conversation about that with a student sort of enlightened me to, not just her what's on her resume. This is in her heart. We have someone who has a background in special education that understands what that means now and what we need to provide for services. And while it's also important to have parents that also have navigated that, she brings in sort of that other experience that is so important. So those are my words on those two candidates or applicants. Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen. Ed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to speak briefly on behalf of Amy Lehman. Knowing Amy and knowing how committed she is, I'll say that I think she's probably been following school committee meetings and watching them longer than a number of the members have even sat on the school committee that are part of this call tonight. She's incredibly dedicated. She's thoughtful. She's very measured, and she's committed to being an advocate, and she does it in a very effective way. And there was some talk earlier about the way that she'd reached out to Senator Lewis. She really wants to do a deep dive into understanding the state aid education formula and understand why we were getting, or perhaps not getting, more appropriately, what we should have been as a community. And that's the kind of commitment she has. So I think she comes to this this position with a really different experience than a lot of other folks who may have, who may be part of the committee now. I think as a parent representative, that's really huge. I think that makes a difference. And she has two young children that are in the system. She's shown herself already to be incredibly engaged within the schools, and she's really gone above and beyond. I think she's taken on a lot of responsibility and really advocated in her capacity as parent and as resident that I've been really impressed with for the last several years that I've known her and the work that she's been doing. So I strongly encourage everyone to cast one of your votes for Amy Lehman. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Julie Smith-Galvin.
There's not a whole lot more to be said, I suppose. Everybody is just amazing, and we are very lucky. I have known Darcy as well for years because our children are the same age, and just like Ann said, didn't really know her background until recently, and she is just so impressive. And I think the fact that she's had a student who's gone all the way through the school system, so seeing it firsthand and then can apply her obvious academic credentials, she will be a win. I'm honestly like Susie, I'm a bit torn on my second one. I don't, it resonates with me that having somebody like Greg who can hit the ground running is really essential, knowing kind of how hard it is to be engaged in these meetings, particularly online, and the level of work that you have on the school committee. You have my utmost respect. You're really doing amazing work, and having somebody like him would be great. It also resonates with me that having elementary, parents of elementary school children, I can see where there's value there too. And we have two great candidates in Amy and Steve who could fill that role. So I don't have to make a decision right now. I won't, but that's my thinking.
Thanks, Julie. I don't see any other, Tom Markham.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was certainly very, very interested and couldn't agree more with probably everything that all have said tonight, especially the part of how grateful we must be to be in a position of having not only 5 nominated candidates, but to really have 8 super quality applicants. And it is, as several folks have said, it is a difficult choice. I would strongly encourage that among the 8, never mind the 5, 2 will prevail. And I strongly encourage really all 8 to seek office come the spring. Regardless of the composition of the committee, there are going to be 4, as Amy Purcell mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, there are going to be 4 school committee seats on the ballot next spring. I would love to see a community vetting of a robust process. I'm a huge believer in the community that vets its candidates, that go through an open process of campaigning, however agonizing. And yes, I agree, it can be that. But it's open, it's transparent. You got to stand before the voters, stand before the news media, stand before your fellow candidates. There's tremendous value in that process, and so I encourage all 8 to put names in for next spring. It would really have a wonderfully robust campaign season, and I'd love to see that as a school committee member and as a voter. I think one of the other interesting things that all of us here tonight are. We all share a couple different points. We all, by and large, we're certainly all elected officials. We're all town residents. We're all voters. We're all taxpayers. Many of us are parents with kids in the school. Some of us are parents whose kids have graduated or moved on or in other different places. So we want nothing more than the best, obviously, for the school department. The biggest concerns that I would express in a difficult way, looking at all these applicants, especially the 5 nominees, is that they all bring something unique, different, and exciting to the table. But that we also have a job to do, and we have a vote to take in the very near future. So I would. Where I've landed in this difficult decision of really combing through these resumes, and obviously I put Darcy's name into nomination. Darcy is a fellow Greenwood parent and former active in Greenwood PTO, very much engaged in the local neighborhood and local schools. She served with us on the superintendent search committee. She's been engaged as much as she can in many things around town, and has tremendous support and skill and talent. I think one of the things that she brings to the table, as I mentioned in early on comments, because of the situation that we're in, and because this is frankly a very short-term appointment, that no matter how skilled an elected official is upon winning an election, and no matter how competent he or she is, right? And we've all been there. Everyone on this call has been there. It takes a couple of months, potentially 6 or more, to get up to speed with what's happening. And unfortunately, in this challenging days, I share the view with some of my colleagues that we don't necessarily have that luxury. That isn't to say that we don't appreciate everyone's qualifications, because they are sincere and deep. But I think Dr. Burns would certainly bring some educational prowess. He's a literacy specialist, a special educator, and someone who could certainly hit the ground running in helping us make the challenging competing decisions around COVID and safety and building securities and health and safety and teaching and learning and being an employer for over 600 employees, working conditions and all. I think she would certainly bring something to that table almost immediately. My other choice is honestly for my former colleague, Greg Liakos. He has been, in his time on the school committee, as I think Mr. Chine said, he's been vetted by the community a couple times, having successfully gone out there and put his name out. But far more importantly than that is the quality of character and the quality of person that he brings to really anything that he does. I know he can hit the ground running. He hasn't been away that long, and he's never far from town affairs. He's a committed volunteer in our community, and a very educated person with regard to state education policy, state arts and culture policy. And I fully know, as someone who, as Colleen Guida mentioned, Colleen and Greg and I sat as the sort of lead negotiators in that 1.5 year round process of collective bargaining, which was certainly always fun. But nonetheless, I couldn't agree more with Colleen's clarification or classification of Greg. He's just a consummate professional who knows the contract at this point that just started. The contract that just started, frankly, September 1st of this year, and never mind the 6 memorandums of understanding regarding extraordinary working conditions. So some of those things are a big deal when it comes to what's before us in the next 6 months. So I would strongly encourage colleagues here tonight to consider experience as a greater need, and support Dr. Burns and Mr. Liakos.
Thanks, Tom. I'm not seeing any members of the Town Council or School Committee with their hands up. So I guess we are ready to go around and ask people for their votes. We've had motions and secondeds on all the candidates at play, the 5 candidates. I'm going to go alphabetical School Committee and then alphabetical Town Council, just to keep it clean and easy to organize. Mike Bedreau.
Oh, and I should give you my 2 choices? Is that how it works?
2 choices. Yep.
Okay. I'll go with Darcy Burns and Michelle Toppy, please.
Okay. Thank you. Colleen Guida. Mute Colleen.
I'm going with Greg Liakos and Darcy Burns. Thank you.
Thanks, Colleen. Tom Markham.
I'm going with Darcy Burns and Greg Liakos.
Thank you. Amy.
I'm going with Amy Lehman and Darcy Burns.
Thanks, Amy. Susie.
I'm going with Amy Lehman and Stephen Ingalls.
Okay. Thank you. Maureen.
I am going with Dr. Burns and Greg Larkos.
Thanks, Maureen. Jonathan.
With great appreciation and respect for everyone who applied, going with Darcy Burns and Greg Liakos.
Paul Donaco.
I will be going with Darcy Burns and Amy Lehman.
Thank you. Ed Dombrowski.
I'm casting my votes, Madam Chair, for Amy Lehman and Darcy Burns.
Thank you, Ed. Peter May is casting for Amy Lehman and Greg Liakos.
Aye.
Correct. Thanks, Peter. Julie Smith-Galvin.
I'm casting for Darcy Burns and Greg Liakos.
Thank you. And myself, I'm casting for Darcy Burns and Greg Liakos. So I know we have clerks that can count better than I perhaps, but it looks like 10 for Darcy, 7 for Greg, 1 for Stephen Ingalls, 5 for Amy Lehman, and 1 for Michelle Toppy. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. I trust you, Paul, but do we have a clerk that can tell me it's correct?
Hi, Ann, it's Sherry. Yes, you are correct.
Okay. Thanks, Sherry. So I believe we have 2 candidates that were elected. Is that everyone's understanding? So it appears that Darcy Burns and Greg Liakos will be placed on the school committee. Everyone? Okay. And
Congratulations to both.
Congratulations to both with tremendous thanks for everyone who put their names in and you know, hopefully we'll continue forward. All right. Sounds good. So now our next joint mission is slightly different. It's appointment of Human Rights Commission, which has been without 4 folks for several months. We are appointing 4 appointments. The school committee will appoint 3 of those seats. Town council will appoint 1 of those seats. And so let's see. 3 of the appointments are through April 30th, 2021. 1 appointment is through April 30th, 2023. With regard to, and I'll open it up for discussion certainly, with regard to the HRC, they've been without several members, and the great burden has been placed on just a small few to continue to do some great work. So we wanted to get them bodies, and like the school committee, had amazing applicants. I don't think we could go wrong with any of them, frankly. After we do this, I think it makes sense to have a subcommittee kind of examine and ask some questions about there was some confusion as to even process with the HRC. So have a subcommittee involving both school committee and town council. I know that Steve Mayo has graciously offered to jump on that subcommittee, and I would definitely ask someone from the HRC also to be on it. So that's going to be happening in the future, but for now, to fill those seats, I think is really important. I'll certainly open it up for discussion prior to any nominations. Yeah, let me just see. I saw Ed's hand first, and then you, Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to begin by saying that I think that the Human Rights Commission has, over the years, done some important work in our community. I think the Dr. Martin Luther and Coretta Scott King event is one such example of that. I think the Pride events that have occurred in recent years have been another. And so I thank those who have offered their time and talent to make sure that they were able to contribute in a meaningful way to that commission. I do want to raise an issue. When we look at the agenda for tonight, this is item number 8, and it's under the joint meeting. And in fact, it was pursuant to the agenda to be joint appointments. And there has been a tremendous amount of confusion and conflicting positions as to whether these appointments are to be made by the school committee, or whether they're reserved for town council, or whether they're to be jointly made. And I had occasion to go back and try to understand, as I hope everyone has or will, to better understand how exactly we came to this point. Back in August of 2015, the late titan of our community, Bill Chetwin, presented for the first time before the then Board of Selectmen the concept of a Human Rights Commission. And at that time, there was what was called a proposal, Rev 2.0, that ultimately was motioned by Selectman Glenn, and then ultimately unanimously approved by that body. The next evening, the 25th of August, I believe, of 2015, Mr. Mayo presented ostensibly the same presentation before the school committee, and that too was unanimously voted upon. Mr. Mayo, according to the meeting minutes of the school committee from that time, made it clear that there would be initially independent appointments by the school committee and by town council, but then after the first round of appointments, then in fact they would be jointly made. Since that time, back in 2016, on November 14th of 2016, the Human Rights Commission came before the again then Board of Selectmen, and they offered up a PowerPoint. This was for informational purposes only. They offered up a PowerPoint, and following were what were labeled policies and procedures. And it was a 2.5-page document that indicated that the commission would consist of 12 members and 9 voting members. To my understanding, that is the latest presentation that has been made before I can at least speak to the town council relative to the structure and composition of the Human Rights Commission. I do point out that the policies and procedures that were presented at the town council, again, were not voted on. It was only for informational purposes. And I understand that as recently as last month, the Human Rights Commission has had in circulation a policies and procedures which certain of the members assert is the governing authority for that commission. And that, in fact, lists 14 members, 11 of whom should be voting members. And in speaking, I've spoken with both chairs. Actually, I spoke to all 3 chairs over the last several weeks, school committee, Human Rights Commission, and town council. And it's very clear to me that we don't have a clear understanding of who's to be appointing whom and in what capacity. I know when I last spoke to Madam Chair, that's when she had referenced the packet that was approved back in 2015 that makes it clear that after the first appointments, they were to be joint going forward. These subsequent documents do not, from my perspective, as best I can tell, appear to have ever been in any way recorded or ratified by anyone, but specifically the 2 appointing bodies. So I think we find ourselves in a situation where, as recently as this afternoon and this evening, I've had communications with different folks who have indicated a different understanding in terms of who is to be doing what. And I think this opens up the broader question that I tried raising a few months ago in terms of making sure that we can define the Human Rights Commission to best serve the needs of our community. When Bill Chetwin presented, I think he encapsulated it beautifully. He said, that we need to make sure that we're doing this right. He said, if we're going to do this, we want to do it as right as we possibly can. And I couldn't agree with that more. If we want to do this, we need to do it as right as we possibly can. I can understand that the Human Rights Commission may be looking for additional appointments, and I would encourage anyone can volunteer. You need not be a commissioner, certainly, to volunteer with the Human Rights Commission. But I think we have a responsibility as the appointing authorities to first define what a process looks like, to all be on the same page, again, as the appointing authorities. And also, and Madam Chair, I agree with you that having the subcommittee perhaps re-examine the Human Rights Commission to see ways in which we can improve it, ways in which it can be more responsive to the community. I know this past spring there had been a lot of community input and a lot of calls for reimagining and revisiting what the composition of the Human Rights Commission looks like. And I remind everyone that back in 2015, the primary purpose of the Human Rights Commission was a body that you would come before if you had a grievance. So if, for example, you felt as if you were being discriminated against by a landlord, or if you felt as if you were being discriminated against at a restaurant, or any number of bases, you would come before the commission, and they were meant to be a first stop to see whether something could be kind of worked out, almost like mediated out between the parties. And ultimately, there are laws that would take into effect. Certainly under certain circumstances. We had MCAT as well would ultimately be another authority that would be a next step in the process, but it was meant to try to diffuse what I would characterize as situations that were potentially diffusable at the most local level. And I think that the Human Rights Commission seems to have perhaps gone astray of that primary focus, and again, done some tremendous educational components to it. But I think we all really have a responsibility to take a step back, to just re-examine exactly what it is we're looking for in the Human Rights Commission, but also understand, so we're all on the same page, what the process looks like, so that we can solicit the kind of volunteers that will help to advance the objectives of the commission. And I don't think we're there at this point, and given how much I've been hearing inconsistent approaches to even what the process is to appoint people, I think it would be inappropriate for us to be appointing this evening. I do wholeheartedly agree, Madam Chair, with your suggestion of a subcommittee to at least determine what is the process, what are the bylaws, what are the policies and procedure, what are the charges of the commissioners. I don't think we have that, and I don't think that it should be within the responsibility of the Human Rights Commission to define that, nor should it be in the responsibility of any of our committees, boards, or commissions to define and even add their own numbers of voting members. I mean, that's why we're the appointing bodies here. And I think that really behooves us. And as I said, as best I can tell, 2016 would have been the last time there was any sort of meaningful information at all with the Human Rights Commission, and at least then the Board of Selectmen, as in terms of what the composition of that looked like. But even then, it wasn't a vote. So the only governing document presents as what was back in August of 2015, which says that these are joint appointments. So for that reason, I would ask that we establish that subcommittee without delay, because I think it's an important piece. I would encourage people to give of their time and talent to the Human Rights Commission in the meantime. And I hope we could reconvene in short order. At least the subcommittee could present to each of these bodies, and then ultimately make recommendations, and that could be then ratified in terms of the number of membership, the membership number, the charge and responsibility of the commissioners, and the general direction of the Human Rights Commission. I think 5 years in, we're probably at a good place to do that reevaluation. And I think we need to before we put several people onto this. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughts, Ed. As an ad hoc committee, there aren't any charters or bylaws or statutes that control this. And I want to make it clear, it wasn't HRC's fault that there was confusion with the appointment process. I think both town council and school committee just kind of went along with, you have these seats, we have these seats. So I don't want to make it seem as if, and I don't think Ed was saying this, that it was the HRC who was making it getting rogue. Right, absolutely.
Right, exactly.
So Mike, did I see you put your hand up, or Markham, or neither? Mike.
My question was a little bit more on the procedural side than anything else. I know Ed went into much more detail about what we want to do as far as determining that down the road. But so there are 4 positions to be filled currently, one of which is to be filled by the town council. The other 3 are to be filled by the school committee. My question is, there is one position that goes through 2023 and 3 others that go through 2021. My understanding is that the school committee has the one that goes through 2023. Is that correct?
Sure, yes.
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Absolutely, thanks, Mike. Tom, and then Amy.
Sure, thank you, Madam Chair. I very much appreciate Ed's remarks, and certainly appreciate from where they come, both in the big picture and the small. One concern that I have if possible, I'd like to, split Ed's remarks in half. I wholeheartedly support both, Ann and Ed's comments around setting up a review committee or a panel of sorts to, it's always appropriate at a certain point around a timeline to review the effectiveness of a committee, review the community's, the committee's continued relevance, the committee's work, the committee composition. Is it too small? Is it too large? Is it not diverse enough, etc. So I think certainly I couldn't agree more that however that composed of, and I don't know if something like this is a joint vote. I would imagine it was because it was established by 2 independent votes. But I couldn't agree more that it would be time for this community and these 2 boards that really provide the substance of membership, regardless of how, to begin in earnest a process of review. A concern that I have about not moving forward with appointing 4 individuals tonight is that the Human Rights Commission has been working. They've been doing, as Ed said at the onset of his remarks, they've been doing some really good things for a really long time. I would hate to bring that work to a halt because they are certainly understaffed. They're under-volunteered right now. They feel that, do we support them? Do we not support them? There's a great question among that. And I think the biggest thing is to show some support to the work, the kind and quality work and in earnest work that the individuals that remain on that committee are doing. And never mind the COVID environment that they're trying to do some work in. I think we can do both things at the same time and still provide quality outcomes. I think it's very important that we have the review panel. I think it's very important that we probably establish some protocol around what to do with committees when they hit 5 years or so anyways. It's probably a good practice for us as a municipality to have that type of openness. But I do feel strongly that if we kick the can down the road and not appoint 4 people this evening to fill some necessary seats that have been vacant now for months, that we're not showing the type of support, not intentionally, so I don't mean that, Ed, I think you know that, but we're not showing the support that the current members deserve to move forward in the work that they've started in a very sincere and thoughtful way.
Thank you, Tom. Amy had her hand up, and then Donaco, and then Colleen.
Thank you, Anne. I would also just like to echo Ed's concerns and also Tom's. I have sort of been in the middle of the HRC situation since last spring. And I do feel like we've kind of gone around in circles trying to figure out this process. It certainly does appear to be very unclear to me. And even up until yesterday, it seemed almost unclear to me. And I feel like maybe what sort of started the red flags for me, if you will, was when back in September, I wanted to share information about the process with my committee as chair. And I referenced the bylaws that I had. And, the next day, in terms of the appointing process and how we were actually going to make these appointments. And according to the bylaws that I had received, here I am providing this information at a public meeting. The next day, I found out that those bylaws are actually not the governing documents, I guess you could say, for the HRC, and that we now have a new set of documents that we're supposed to be following, which was policy and procedures that I received from Maria. So I just was confused. So for me, I do feel like, are we supposed to be following the bylaws that I received, which is, I believe, what Ed was referencing, or is it the new policies and procedures? And because I feel like we need more clarity in regards to that, especially with the appointing process. You know, I certainly would agree that a subcommittee is definitely needed so that we can clarify how we should move forward and that everybody is on the same page, because I don't think people are following the same documents at this point. And I feel like if we can all be be on the same page and come to the table together to figure out how to move forward, I do think that would be best.
Thanks, Amy. There's no bylaws. It's an ad hoc committee. There's no bylaws. There's no statute that controls it. There's no charter that controls it. So there was an initial document that suggested one way, and then with school committee and town council looking on, appointments happened the other way. As an ad hoc committee, we certainly can appoint now.
I mean, I just have one question, Anne, like in regards to the bylaw, or I understand what you're saying about the bylaws, but the new policy and procedure, why do we have two? Like, why do we have access to bylaws that said 2.0, proposal 2.0, and then the policy and procedures? I'm just confused as to which set of documents, we're supposed to follow as appointing bodies.
Right. So the second set is the HRC got together and went through, they had someone who wrote up a whole bunch of kind of rules and regs for that they were following, but it never got voted on. It never got accepted. It never got certainly presented before us for a vote. However, there's no real, with either set of procedures, we can appoint 4 people. I think the original document says it is a joint appointment, which I sent to you yesterday. I understand school committee, there was some confusion, so they said, no, we have 3 seats. That's fine. It's still going to result in this body tonight appointing 4 people. So I think we can certainly go round and round and round. If someone, someone can certainly call the vote and we can vote to move forward, and some of us might not want to vote to move forward, and then we'll see where we stand. But I don't know if talking about it still after all these months is going to change anything.
Yeah, I mean,
Colleen, Guida.
Sorry.
That all being said, Anne, thank you. Ed, I appreciate the history that you provided. And clearly there's confusion, right? When you have 2 sets of documents that don't support each other, but do in parts. So I may be speaking out of line, but this is just coming, just seems reasonable, that I do think that we owe the Human Rights Commission members, and I think they need to do the work, especially given, the last few months, the last 6 months that we've gone through. There's a lot of work to be done. I propose that we just appointed 2 school committee members jointly, successfully, right? I propose that we appoint the 4 members, we nominate them and jointly appoint them after this discussion, and also create a subcommittee as immediately as Ed and Anne suggested, so that going forward we have, a governing document that the HRC, the town council, and the school committee can work from. But I think it's just important that we fill the commission with members so that they can do their work. They're disjointed, and while we would like to think that volunteers are going to step forward right now, I think it's really hard for people to do that right now without feeling safe and supported, right? So that's my proposal, is that we nominate our members and our candidates, and that we jointly appoint the 4 open seats.
And just to comment on that really quickly before I go to Paul and then Julie, that's what the initial document says, that after the creation of the first committee, then it's joint appointments. So that would be absolutely in line and consistent with the document that was presented at town council when the HRC was created. Paul Donaco.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Prior to this meeting, I thought I knew exactly how I was going to handle the HRC issue tonight after speaking with one of my fellow counselors. But now I'm totally confused. And if I'm still confused by the time this is all said and done, I'm voting that we don't vote at all on this. How many members are there supposed to be on the HRC? Is it supposed to be 5 members on there right now? 9 members, 11 members, 14 members? What is the actual number that's supposed to be on the HRC right now? Or is it an open vote?
I'm not sure. I know they're down 4 members. A new clergy member was just joined, which is not something that either of our boards appoints. But I couldn't tell you the number of members on any of the committees, frankly, in town. Maureen is waving her hand. She knows.
Yeah, so I am the HRC liaison, and I'm trying to think in my head. I believe they have 5 appointed members. There's 4 vacancies, so they have a total of 9. They have a couple of ex officio. So Chief Scory is an ex officio member. I think Steve Mayo and Doug Lyons are also ex officio non-voting members. A member of the clergy is also not appointed. The clergy chooses them, but I believe that it is 9 members that between the town council and the school committee that we appoint. And I just want to add that the Human Rights Commission for every year since 2015 has come in front of us to give an annual report. So this year is the 1 year that they haven't come, but they've come every year. Used to be Chief Smith coming with whoever the current chairs were. And in 2018, David Watts was the chair and came in front of us in March and asked that we add an additional voting member. And so we actually have voted on this. We added another voting member in 2018. So yeah, and I'm just getting correction because again, I'm trying to think of who's been going to the meetings that we do on Zoom. So each of us get 4. So school committee appoints 4, town council appoints 4 voting members, and then you have the clergy, the police, and a high school student, and then the ex officios that I mentioned. And I just want to say that since May, they have been half-staffed during COVID and during this pandemic, and they do amazing work, and they have all stepped it up, and we owe it to them to give them the help of 4 additional members. And I do think we need to talk about it. It's been 5 years. Let's talk about it. I will say, as a liaison who's gone to the meetings for the last 4 years, it would be wonderful to have a school committee appointment liaison who goes to the meetings as well. I don't think there has been one in the last couple of years. And so I think we can talk about that and put together, I'm happy to sit on that, Chair Santos and work with Tom Mullins and anyone else that wants to work on it. But I really think it's important for us to take this vote and get the HRC the help they desperately need right now, that they've been waiting for since May.
Great. Thank you.
Chair,
Julie.
finish?
Oh, you weren't finished?
No, I wasn't.
All right, so finish.
Thank you very much. So based upon what I just heard, there were 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 voting members, according to what we were just told. There was 4 from appointments, 4 again, 1 from the clergy, 1 from the police, 1 from a school student.
So
and then you have the ex officios after that.
Yeah, so it's 11. It's 4 from each of us. So that's 8, and then a clergy, a police, and a student.
Okay, thank you. So there's 11 voting members. Are we all in agreement that there's 11 voting members? So that we can at least move forward with clarification on a few things. You're saying that we don't have no jurisdiction on the policies and procedure. Is that correct?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as an ad hoc committee, it wasn't as formalized as some of the other committees that are governed by the charter or the bylaws or statutorily governed, like the planning board. So an ad hoc committee, I mean, I'm on them at the law school. It's kind of like, hey, who wants to be on this committee? This HRC is much more formal than some of those ad hoc committees. But you know, there was a document that Ed referenced that would certainly support what Colleen Guida had suggested, that we could do a joint appointment of 4 bodies tonight.
Well, Madam Chair, I have my reservations as much as Mr. Dombrowski does on this, because my name was mentioned in that group along with Mr. Dombrowski and Mr. Mayo. So the group that was in place right now, who established the policies and procedures, their characters is in question right now. How do we know what the policies are?
So
that's my opinion. That's my opinion.
Right. It's not a good opinion, I don't think, but based
regardless
on,
of that, it's still my opinion.
Not at all. That's
they
fine.
were out of place, and I kept quiet. But here's the issue right now. We don't have anything to go by. So we want to appoint people and then set the procedures after we appoint the people. Well, how do we know if the people that we're appointing are going to be equally as good as the existing ones that are in there now?
Because we have resumes.
Okay.
Really thoughtful resumes.
Okay.
Cover letters.
So I have my reservations. I have more reservations on this than the school committee.
Sure.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
So, that's fine. So you've answered the questions that I had right now. I'm still a little bit concerned as to how this is going to move forward.
Okay.
Before and then after. But thank you.
Sure, Paul. Thank you. Julie.
Well, I was just going to repeat what Maureen said, or I was going to say before she said it. I mean, absolutely. We have seen the HRC come to this body and give us overviews. It's really, I know multiple times in the almost 3 years I've been on this board, when we are appointing for a committee that might not have a fixed number by bylaw or by statute, then we have really allowed more people in. We essentially, I think, just did it on the fence committee. So I think we have full discretion to appoint 4 or whatever we have, 12, frankly, resumes in front of us. And I will just say, I think we do a pretty good job of kind of understanding what the committees are. I think there's absolute validity in reassessing after 5 years. Not only HRC, but a number. Again, the ones that are perhaps more loosely governed. Doesn't concern me at all that there were an evolution of, I wouldn't even call them governing documents. I would call them guidelines. And I can tell you, having just gone through this with the Environmental Sustainability Committee, that's what they are. They're just something to give structure, to allow, you know, a group of hardworking volunteers who want to do some good, a little structure. And we have every opportunity to review those. But I think we need to move forward with appointing at least 4 people today.
Tom Markham, and then I saw Ed's hand up.
Thank you. So I appreciate, Madam Chair, the opportunity to speak twice on this matter. And in fact, one of the things I wanted to mention, I honestly didn't think about it until Maureen mentioned it. The HRC has come before the school committee and provided reports and annual information as well. So I think they are doing their very best to stay in touch with their appointing boards to the best of their awareness. One of the things, maybe it's an offshoot from Julie's point, not to put words in her mouth, but she put thoughts in my head, that the individuals that remain, and even those that were off, that resigned as they should have, but nonetheless, the individuals that remain are really hardworking volunteers that have no intention of being trapped in the bureaucracy and the politics of bylaws. And not that all of that isn't important stuff, because it is. But I think when we lost our dear friend and HRC godfather, Mr. Chetwin, some of that stewardship of process was lost as well. And while that, I'm not saying that that's an okay thing, because this is probably a good thing that we're having this conversation at this time. But I certainly do not want to hold the volunteers and the good work of the people that sit on this committee and have, in a genuine nature, sat on this committee for years now, or months now, and done really good things. They shouldn't be held or penalized because of a bureaucratic matter that is really, outside of their purview or their control anyways. We all see, this community has seen for 5 years some really quality product, events, speaker series, working with schools, working with the schools, bringing in, special events to the town, working to host events at the library, at the schools, everywhere. This is not a committee that works behind the scenes in the dark. This is a committee whose product has been well noticed. They have supported vigils on the common. I don't have to rattle on the type of things that they've done. I think we all know that. My point there is this is a committee that the public, our community, at this point in time in our nation, desperately needs. The work of these volunteers and the 4 individuals we can appoint tonight are desperately needed. Let us establish a committee to Ann and Ed's point. I'm all in. In fact, if you're looking for a liaison, Maureen, from the school committee, certainly it's an appointment from Amy Purcell, but I'd volunteer for that. I'm all in. Whatever we need to do to get this committee back on track and to have the individuals who are remaining feel supported, then I think we need to do. I wholeheartedly, however we're going to land there, and I think we need to do it immediately, whether we appoint together all 4 or we go 3 and 1, that's maybe that's what we have to decide, or someone decides for us. I'm honestly less concerned about that. That's territorialism and nonsense to me. The members of the school committee and the town council have responsibility to properly staff a committee that needs to do good work and that our town desperately needs their work done. So I would like to move the question, Madam Chair. I believe that this process is well underway. If this process were to be derailed, it should have been derailed at any time between July and now, as opposed to occurring at this time. It's been well publicized. We have some really quality, we have 10 candidates, I believe. And I think we should begin our discussion tonight about appointing 4 of them. And I move the question to begin that process.
Is there a second to move the question?
Second.
Second by Julie. Discussion on moving the question. Ed, is your hand for moving the question discussion?
It is, Madam Chair. And I think that perhaps it was most telling when Councilor Dinoco asked the question of how many members are on this commission. And there was silence for a while before it was even figured out. And in fact, the answer is it depends on what you look at. There are actually 3 different documents that are in circulation. The only document that was voted on by the then Board of Selectmen in 2015 lays out the appointments, again, to be jointly. The document that was presented in 2016 says there are to be 12 members, 9 of whom are voting. The document that was circulating around last month is twice as long as the document for 2016 and says there should be 14 members, 11 of whom are voting. So when someone asks, oh, what are we voting on? Or someone says each of us gets 4, what is the authority that we're even pointing to say that each of us gets 4? Like like when we're talking about, okay, we're going to vote in people tonight, what is the authority that we're looking to? And I'm not talking about even a bylaw or anything, but I'm saying what is governing our voting here tonight? Because I know any of the other committees, commissions, and boards that we appoint to, it's prescribed. We know how many, and if we decide we want to change that, then we do it at the time as an individual body. We're the appointing authority, and to my knowledge, I've been on the council almost 4 years now. To my knowledge, I know that we have never approved any policies and procedures relative to a body that we appoint to. And I don't. So I hear the point.
Moving the question. Yeah.
And I hear the point about we need help for the Human Rights Commission. Well, gosh, I look at these resumes. I see 10 people who have expressed an interest in the Human Rights Commission. Are you telling me that they are going to refuse to volunteer and help unless and until they're appointed as commissioners? Why not let all 10 of them volunteer while we work through our processes, get our house in order to know exactly what we're doing from an appointing perspective, and then ultimately, perhaps a couple of those that are volunteering of the 10 might find that it's not exactly what they're looking to do. A couple others might find that they love it. And it might be very clear that certain people would be better fits for this commission. Working by doing. I heard a lot of talk with the school committee appointment about the idea of kind of getting acclimated to things first, and then once you get acclimated, maybe you'll run for office. I don't think that we're creating a situation whereby the Human Rights Commission can't move forward on its mission, however it currently defines it, because these people could absolutely do that. They're not going to vote. Does that mean that they're not going to take part? I don't think that's a legitimate concern, but I do think there is real value for us getting things straightened out for all of us, and then moving forward in an appropriate, thoughtful, orderly way. And we can't do that right now.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to moving the question? Is anyone waving their hands? No blue hands. Okay. So we have a vote to move the question in a second, and I'll take a roll call with regard to moving the question for a vote in appointment, potentially. Mike Bedreau.
Yes.
Colleen Guida.
Yes.
Tom Markham.
Yes.
Amy Purcell. Amy Purcell?
I apologize.
That's okay. No. Okay, no. Susie Value.
Yes.
Yes. Maureen Butt.
Yes.
Jonathan Chines.
Yes.
Paul Donaco. Paul may have stepped away. Ed Dombrowski.
No.
Peter May.
No.
Okay. Julie Smith Galvin.
Yes.
And myself, yes.
Madam Chair, no.
Got it.
Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 votes to move the question and 4 votes to not. So with that, we will move forward on appointing 4 members to the HRC. And Colleen, since school committee does have, in the first iteration, the 3 seats and 1, you had suggested that we do a joint appointment, which we certainly can based on the documents before us, for 4 names. Is that correct?
Yeah, I just felt that given our conversation and where we're at right now, and because it is referenced, we can reference it in the original document, that it just makes sense. And like Tom spoke to, in the end, we are appointing 4 qualified applicants who are ready to work.
Great. Mike, your hand was up?
Yeah, and I would recommend we appoint the position that goes till 2023 first, since that would likely be our top choice, and we would want them to stay on longer, and then do the 3 appointments to go to 2021.
Sure. Do you have a nomination for that person?
I do. My nomination is Nicole Jacob.
Excellent. Is there a second for Nicole?
Second.
Second. Many seconds. I heard Tom Markham. We can take this one as a single vote since it's the 2023 slot, and then we just have 3 to appoint. Does anyone have any objection to that? Seeing none. Okay, so we'll do roll call vote to appoint Nicole Jacob to the position that is through 2023. Myself, yes. Ed?
With no disrespect to any of these nominees,
Sure.
no.
Okay. Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Amy?
Sorry, with same as Ed, with no disrespect to the people who, to the applicants, I feel like this process does need a little bit more clarity, and I'm not comfortable voting, so no.
Sure. Paul?
Same as the 2 prior.
Got it. Colleen?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Susie?
Yes.
Tom Markham?
Yes.
And Chris, can you vote? You can vote.
I didn't know, I thought I could vote, but yeah.
No, you can't? Can he not, Tom? Oh, he can't. Okay, I knew he couldn't vote for school committee. All right, we would.
I thought my term went till midnight, so.
That's okay. We would love to have your thoughts and wishes, but that's okay. You can be a fly on the wall.
Not better than flying your hair.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, and you know, but still, you had to do it. All right, so it appears that Nicole Jacobs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, myself, is in the position to go to 2023 with the majority. Does anyone folks could nominate 3 names. It doesn't matter at this point. We could do Tom Markham.
So now we're moving on to the 2 seats that are that are open.
3 seats.
3 seats.
Uh-huh.
I would like to put 2 names into nomination.
Sure.
I'd like to put the name of Jeremy Little
Mhm.
and Karen Williams.
Okay. Jerry. Is there a second for Jeremy Little and Karen Williams? Second. Colleen. Excellent. We could do this the same way we did school committee. We could take nominations and everyone votes for 3, or we can, someone, if through a discussion, folks are set to have us vote on 2 now, or if someone wants to add a 3rd name. Mike Boudreau.
I'd like to add Audra Bartz onto that list if we could, please.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Second, Audra Bartz. Susie, you seconding?
Yeah, I was going to nominate someone else because I forgot about the second.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
sure.
Teresa Aravina Gonzalez.
Excellent. Is there a second for Teresa Aravena Gonzalez?
Second.
Second, excellent. So we have 4 names left. 4 nominations. Does anyone want to nominate anyone else, or?
Can I nominate Kimberly Ring Allen?
Sure. Second on Kimberly Ring Allen. Maureen, seconded.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other nominations? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now. I'm not seeing any. Okay. So I think with the amount of people we have, it probably makes sense to do it in the same way we did the school committee vote, unless I am certainly open. No? Make sense? Okay. So we could go around to our members and ask for 3 folks each. So clerks, get ready to write names down. Okay, Mike Boudreau. So the names are Kimberly Ring Allen, Jeremy Little, Teresa Aravena Gonzalez, Audra Bartz, and Karen Williams.
I will, my 3 would be Karen Williams, Audra Bartz, and Jeremy Little.
Okay. Jeremy. Colleen Guida.
I am voting for Karen Williams, Jeremy Little, and Kim Ring Allen.
Okay. Tom Markham.
I'm voting for Jeremy Williams, Jeremy Little, Karen Williams, and Kimberly Ring Allen.
Okay. Amy Purcell.
So for the same reasons as I stated before, I'm not voting for any of these nominees.
Okay, so are you abstaining?
No, my vote would be no, I guess. Or
okay,
yeah,
sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Sure, Susie.
I'll be voting for Jeremy Little, Teresa Aravena Gonzalez, and Karen Williams.
Okay, Maureen.
I will be voting for Teresa Aravena Gonzalez, Kimberly Ring Allen, and Jeremy Little.
Okay. Jonathan.
I will vote for Teresa Aravena Gonzalez, Kimberly Allen, and Jeremy Little, please.
Paul Donaco.
No vote.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Ed?
With no disrespect to any of the applicants, in the absence of a process, I'm voting no.
Well, in the absence of the process you put forth.
No,
we have a process here. So
actually,
Peter, that's okay. Yeah, there is. There is it. Peter. No? Oh, I can't see it. Oh, I see. Peter, thank you. Peter has Jeremy, Kim, and Teresa. Thanks, Peter. Julie.
Kimberly Ring Allen, Jeremy Little, and Teresa Aravena Gonzalez.
Okay. Okay, so I am voting for, I'm doing some math here. Jeremy Little has 7 votes, I believe. Sherry? Is that right?
I'm counting 2, hold on.
Okay.
I have 8 for Jeremy.
Oh, okay, okay. I would vote for Teresa and Kim Ring Allen. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sherry, can you help me out? Because I was 1 short on Jeremy, so I don't want to be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Kim Ring Allen is 7, I think.
Yes, correct. 7 for her.
Okay, so we've named Jeremy, Kim, and we have, I believe, 6 for Teresa and 4 for Karen Williams.
Yes, correct. And then 1
for Audra.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so we just have to go back one more time and vote for one other person.
Anne, did you have
Cont.
1 more, or did you choose Jeremy? Can you
Yeah, you
name
can
your
vote for
3
me.
again?
I didn't choose Jeremy because I knew he had 8.
Oh, so you just chose.
I chose Teresa and Kim.
Kim.
Right?
So
Yes.
do you have 1
Yeah,
more
correct.
to choose then, or am I incorrect?
Do I? 1 more for who? I'm sorry.
Do you have 1 more to choose then? Aren't we all choosing?
I chose 2, but even with that 2, we didn't get the remaining candidates didn't get 7.
Okay, sorry.
Oh wait, we have 3.
You get 3 votes.
I get 3 votes.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, sorry about that. It's a long meeting. I'll do Karen Williams, which still doesn't put her at 7.
Right, I realized that when you said that. I was like, okay.
So we have Audra at 1 vote, Karen at, thank you, Colleen, for pointing that out. Karen at 5, and Teresa at 3, 4, 5, 6. So we could just go around again. And we can go around again singly, or someone could suggest a slate of 3. Tom, this must be making your head blow up. I mean, Tom Mullen, can we do that?
Well, I was going to suggest, Madam Chair, that the rule that we're all thinking about from the decision earlier to replace school committee members was that we had to have a majority of those eligible to vote. That's how we got to a requirement of 7.
Oh.
That rule doesn't apply here.
Okay.
You can adopt any rule you want for the appointment of these members, given the ad hoc nature of the entity. So if you just want to say the next person who got the most votes gets past the post, there's no legal problem.
Sure. Tom, thanks so much. And I think we have 3 candidates who got a significant amount of votes, very close. Kim Ring Allen had 7. Teresa Aravena Gonzalez had 6. And then Karen Williams had 5. So someone could make a motion that those remaining 3 folks be appointed to the 3 remaining seats.
You forgot Jeremy.
Yeah, are those the 3? Which 3 are they?
Wait a minute. So what are the vote totals? I mean,
Yeah.
Jeremy has 8.
Right.
So he's in.
Right.
Right.
So there aren't 3 seats left.
No, there's not
2
3
seats left.
seats. Yeah.
And Kimberly got 7, so she's in too.
And this is, I'm sorry, this is my fault. I forgot about Nicole Jacobs being nominated apart from the
Right.
others. Yep, so you're right.
So Madam Chair, if we're going to take town council's advice, which I always like to do,
Yes.
it's helped me many a time, why don't we just appoint the 3 highest vote getters?
Yes.
Which would be Jeremy
Perfect.
Little, Kimberly Ring Allen, and Teresa Aravena Gonzalez.
Perfect. Yes, that makes sense.
Is that
I think we were
reasonable to
we were
suggest?
thinking we had more to post. That's very reasonable. Discussion on that. Does anyone have a concern about appointing the 3 remaining vote getters? And they all got significant amount of votes. No one's hand is up. Okay, so what I would do is roll call vote for us to appoint Jeremy, Kim Allen, and Teresa Aravena Gonzalez.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Excellent. Roll call vote. Myself, yes. Julie Smith Galvin.
Yes.
Peter May. Thank you. Ed Dombrowski.
With no respect to any of the nominees, no.
Paul Donaco.
No.
Jonathan Chines.
Yes.
Maureen Butt.
Yes.
Susie Vallieu.
Yes.
Amy Purcell.
Same for the lack of clarity, and so my vote is a no.
Tom Markham.
Yes.
Colleen Guida.
Yes.
Mike Boudreau.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right.
And
Yep.
can I just also congratulations to everyone who we appointed and to all the amazing candidates. And just to let everyone know that the next Human Rights Commission meeting is Tuesday, October 20th, 7 to 8:30 on Zoom. The link is on their website. It's in the meeting notices. So everyone is welcome to join and see all the great work that they do. And Tom, if you could join me there, that would be lovely to see you via Zoom. But thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Amy, I think you're moving forward with a school committee matter?
Yes, I am. We are moving forward with the agenda for a recommendation from Tom Markham, the chair of the Labor Subcommittee, in regards to the MOU. Tom, if you could briefly just talk about what the vote is.
Indeed, as the school committee and the community knows, we have been negotiating since August with units A, B, and C of the Wakefield Education Association, a series of working conditions memorandum regarding COVID, regarding the reopening of schools, regarding the phasing of the reopening of schools, and regarding how supervision and evaluation is to be conducted during this extraordinary time during school year 2021. If I may also take a moment just to say that what's coming up tonight is really the last of a series of MOUs, at least in the foreseeable future, and which is why we appreciated being on this evening's agenda. I want to take a moment to thank not only, especially the men and women of the Wakefield Education Association, the teachers, faculty, staff, paraprofessionals, building-based administrators, and directors who have worked with us so deeply going back to middle of August or so to come up with what is always in first in the best interest of teaching and learning, in the best interest of students, the best interest in health and safety of obviously students first, but certainly families and employees themselves. We have landed in a really good place. We've had some many cooperative conversations, always a collaborative in nature, and the high professionalism of this faculty and staff of the Wakefield Public Schools, we are ever grateful for. Also, certainly want to thank Superintendent Lyons and his team. The team of administrators really knows how to put together a quality educational experience, as we've seen in the reopening of schools since September in the 3 different phases where we're in. We're in phase 3 now. We are really taking the opportunity also before the town council, if I may be so bold, to really appreciate really the quality teachers and quality faculty and staff and administrators we have. We're very lucky in that regard. There are many communities that are struggling to even sit at the same table and have substantive conversations. That's never been our problem. And I just want to say on behalf of the Labor Relations Subcommittee and I dare say the community at large, just a sincere thank you to the teachers and faculty and staff who are doing their very best, extraordinary work in the most difficult and most interesting of times. So with that, Madam Chair, I move that the Wakefield School Committee approve 2 memorandums of understanding for units A, B, and C for school reopening phase 3, and for supervision and valuation for the 2020 to 2021 school year, as presented by the superintendent and recommended by the Labor Relations Subcommittee.
Second.
Thank you. The motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. Judy, are you with us for a roll call vote?
I'm here.
Thank you.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Ms. Vare,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau,
Yes.
and for the final time, Mr. Callahan. Can't
No.
vote?
Can't vote.
My term, according
Okay.
Freddie Mull, expired at 12:01 this morning.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that this concludes our portion of the joint meeting. So thank you all so very much for allowing us to join you this evening. And Susie, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Move that the school committee adjourn its meeting of October 15th, 2020.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Discussion. Seeing none, roll call. Judy.
Ms. Purcell,
Yes.
Ms. Vare,
Yes.
Mr. Markham,
Yes.
Ms. Guida,
Yes.
Mr. Boudreau.
Yes.
Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your night.
Thank you all. Let's do this again soon.
No.
You can stay for the rest of our meeting.
Good night, all.
Bye. Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Thank you all very much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank
you as well. Bye, Doug.
Peace.
All right, COVID-19 update. Tom, thank you for your patience. And is Tom going to be doing it, Steve?
Why don't we go to Ruth first? Ruth is on the line.
Oh, she is. I didn't see her. Okay.
Yep.
Ruth.
Ruth, unmute.
She's unmuting.
Okay.
Hey, Ruth.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought I had unmuted. Okay. Well, a lot has happened in the last 24 hours. Everybody at this point knows that Wakefield is red on the state map. That is primarily due to one large cluster that we have. We do have a number of community cases that are not necessarily related to each other. We have a number of individual households that the adults it tests positive, and then one or more of their household members also test positive. So that is one way for our numbers to increase rapidly, because it's not one case here, one case there, one case third place. It's 2 or 3 cases, in each location. So for Wakefield, if we have 15 cases in a particular 14-day window, that is when we are yellow, and if we have 30, we are red. It's difficult to look at cases day by day and do the count. The state looks at their count on Saturday mornings, but cases come in all the time, not just once a day. They enter the electronic data system all day and actually all night. So our number may not, and usually doesn't, coincide exactly with the state number, because it depends on what time of day they're looking at the electronic data system. We look at the electronic data system several times a day. So when I give a count to the town manager, it's usually early evening, but Our public health nurse checks it again late at night. And so, you know, it could change. So it changes. What I'm trying to say is that number changes during the day and can change more than once during the day. So, I'm only saying this because people have been trying to figure out our case numbers on a day-to-day basis, and we've been asked, why isn't this number the same as the state number? And that's why. We've also received a lot of calls from the public requesting us to identify where the cluster is. We are not going to identify where the cluster is because of HIPAA laws. We're not allowed to give any information that would identify who or where a place is. Fire and police, by law, we give them addresses so that they know if they're responding to a particular address, whether somebody is positive for COVID-19 at the time. Besides that, nobody besides myself and the public health nurse knows. And to be honest with you, most of the time, I don't know the names because I don't need to know. I do keep track, obviously, with where the addresses are. So town manager doesn't know. It's absolutely supposed to be on a need-to-know basis. Let's see. I'm in constant contact with the superintendent of schools. I gave him the heads up about the community turning red. I explained to him and to the Board of Health last night that my recommendation is that there are no changes to how we're going about things at this point. The cluster is not in any danger of expanding to other parts of the community. That being said, our numbers are going up, just like everybody else's are. And although it sounds simplistic, I can't emphasize enough that people should take it very seriously to keep their distance from people, to keep their masks on, to stay home if they don't feel well, to get tested or quarantine if you leave the state, to states that are, you know, on the list that you need to be checked on. Stay home if you're sick. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. I know everybody's heard this a million times, but it's really our only tool to help contain the spread. So it's just what we need to do. Questions?
Does anyone from the board have, Jonathan, I see your hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Ms. Clay, thank you so much for the update and for all the great work, again, that you guys are doing. I did just have a question around sort of the public information piece of it. So I very fully understand and appreciate sort of the HIPAA reasons why we don't make information public on folks that have been infected. I do think there's also some concern that residents have about, you know, how do I know if I've been in contact with someone who's been infected? Is it safe to assume, and is it something that kind of members of the public can be confident in, that if they have potentially been exposed, our contact tracing program would reach out to them?
Absolutely. We have a really good contact tracing program. Our school nurses are helping, our Board of Health members are helping, and if they are identified as a close contact of somebody who is positive for COVID-19, they will receive a phone call from us. However, the caveat is we only know, usually, of cases who live in Wakefield or Melrose because we're a joint health department. We do sometimes find out of positive cases of people who work in Wakefield and self-identify to their employer. Their employers invariably call us and report that to us. And we, even though they're technically not our case, because the person doesn't live in Wakefield or Melrose, we will do a limited amount of contact tracing to make sure that anybody in that workplace who's identified as a close contact, we take it upon ourselves to do that ourselves. So we don't wait for other health departments because not everybody has the same resources we have and don't respond necessarily, within 24 hours. So, but yes, if you're a close contact, you should receive the information. You'll get a call.
Great. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And also do want to acknowledge the work that the school nurses are doing on this in addition to their regular jobs, particularly as the kids have gone back. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Jonathan. Does anyone, I don't see anyone else's hands up. Does anyone have any questions for Ruth? If you want to give a wave, we're all good.
Can I put a shameless plug in for the flu clinic?
You totally can. Yes.
Okay, shameless plug. Drive-through flu clinic, this Saturday morning from 9 to noon. Yes, I know it's supposed to rain. Yes, we'll be out there anyway. It's in front of the high school. People who are 19 years of age or older are welcome to attend. Yes, we'll also have high dose available at this clinic. We will be scheduling a family clinic. We'll set a date at the beginning of next week. And that clinic is open to people of any age 3 and older. So if you miss this Saturday's clinic, you can also come to the next clinic. It'll be on a weeknight from like 5 to 7, so people can come after work and also bring their children so that the whole family can get immunized at the same time. The reason I was late coming on this meeting was because Melrose just held their first family clinic tonight that was very well attended. So I'm looking forward to repeating it in Wakefield. But this Saturday, rain or shine, 9 to 12, Wakefield High School. You can complete the form in advance by going onto the town's website.
Ruth, I also want to just support what you said yesterday during the Board of Health meeting about the drive-through COVID testing at the Square One Mall.
Oh, right.
My daughter had to get tested preschool, and I could not believe how easy it was in professional, and it was just phenomenal, that setup there. So if anyone is looking to get COVID tested, it's the Broad Institute that's doing it. That's where the tests are going. They take all insurance, or most insurance, I assume. You've heard good things about it too.
There's no insurance necessary. So this is something I know people complain about government a lot, but I have to say kudos for the state government, because this testing site, along with about 20 other communities, these testing sites are free.
Yeah.
They're for anybody. You don't need a reason. And you drive up. Some of them you need appointments. The one at the Square One Mall is open every day except Sunday. Don't ask me how I know that, because I went on a Sunday. But Monday to Saturday from 2 to 7. No insurance card necessary.
Wow.
You get your test results. I've been tested there twice. once I got my results at 5 in the morning, and the next I got it at 6:30 in the morning. So you get your results the next day. It's super easy, and it's not one of the ones that go way up your nose. It doesn't hurt at all. Really doesn't hurt. It's quick, it's easy, and we're very fortunate that we have one right down the street.
Yeah. Yeah, it was absolutely seamless. That's
Yep.
great. Thank you so much, Ruth. I can't imagine what you are doing, what
You
you've
don't
done
want
for
to.
this town. I know, I don't want to know, no. But thank you so much for all your efforts. Wakefield's, you know, we are so lucky to have you. Tom, did you want to jump in?
Unmute.
He's trying, I think.
There we go.
There we go.
Here I am. Well, I was told I had to make this quick, so we're in good shape. No, everything's well. Right now, we're gathering documents. We have the second round of reimbursement requests that have to go into both the CARES Act and FEMA. So I've asked all department heads to give me what they've spent so far for the first quarter of fiscal 21, and also to project out to 12/30, because that is the anticipated end date of the CARES Act. FEMA will still be up and running. I have a feeling that the CARES Act will continue, but up until then, we'll have to operate until they make a change. The public building's been doing well. The public facility's been growing around, making some improvements. We're buying some different equipment. I think there'll be a lot of good improvements down the road, things that even after we're done with this, when that ever comes to be, we'll be in very good shape for the future on things that improvements that we're making both in Town Hall and in other public buildings. I wish, the problem that we have now is we have no idea when this is going to end. Part of my job is a full phase thing. It's mitigation, where we try to look at something, we reduce the severity of it. Preparedness, we get ready, here we're going to go, and then we respond. And then the next part is recovery. Well, what we're doing now is we're performing some recovery because we want to get back to some type of normalcy, but we are also still in the response mode. I'd almost equate it to you go in for an operation, and then as the doctor is still performing the operation, they're trying to put you in recovery. So that's basically where we're at, because we don't know what's going to happen down the road. I'm going to be pushing, I had already spoken with Ruth and Mr. Mayo earlier about putting out some messaging in the next couple of weeks. Again, reiterating what Ruth said, washing your hands, face coverings, social distancing. I've gotten some new placards we're going to put out. The police station's putting out some, and I've been assisting all of the departments with different COVID situations, so that people, we have to just make them aware, because we're coming into an area where people are going to go more inside. Let's face it, the cold weather's coming. Same with the restaurants. I had read a thing a few months ago. It said that people who eat inside of the restaurant are 17 times more likely to get COVID. So when you start thinking of those things, and then you have gatherings, even with small families, you might want to rethink what you're doing for Thanksgiving. So these are the type of things, and I'm going to put something out to everybody within the next couple of weeks, to the council and everything, like a letter just stating some certain facts that are going on and things that we're having coming down through the state. But right now, I think town-wise, buildings, supplies and everything, we're doing well. I think we're in good shape. A second surge comes, I think we're in very good shape. And, just gotta, we're preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
Thank you so much for that report, Tom.
You're
And
welcome.
again, for everything you've done as well to support us. Steve, did you want to add anything to?
No, I think that we've got a great team that's doing a fabulous job. I would say to the community, don't let your guard down, continue to be vigilant, continue to wear your mask, continue to wash your hands, and just be careful. This is a tough deal. I get it. We understand it. Unfortunately, a lot of events, I've talked to the town council, you know, we're going to have to put off for a while. I am certainly the Grinch, and but it's for everybody's safety. So got a great team at Town Hall and the school department. Everyone's really pulling and working together. And we'll give a really updated finance report on this at the tri-board meeting to let you guys, which is next week, to show you how we are utilizing the state and federal funds to make sure we stay well afloat. But great team down the line at Town Hall and in the schools. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Steve. Any other, sorry.
I have a quick question, and I'm getting questions about Halloween. Do we have any direction to give people?
Well, you know, Halloween, and maybe Ruth will jump in. Halloween is not a town-sponsored holiday. We never have had town events. We've never sponsored it. We've never changed the date. I think the state's position is that one way going out in the fresh air in small groups and masked is certainly much better than having huge house parties and things like that. At this point, I think we're going to follow the state guidelines unless something changes, but maybe Ruth is going to make me a liar. Go ahead, Ruth.
Nope, I would never do that. So we have come up with some infographics based on some state infographics that we're going to be putting out, if we haven't already put out, on safe trick-or-treating information, as well as safe Halloween in general kind of information. So if it's not up and out now, it's about to be. Our communications director has been working with us, and we've been using, as I said, some state work as well as some work done by some other health departments. We also have an infographic, a new infographic that we're sending to the restaurants to help them with their messaging. So we're really going to be spending some time on using existing resources, adapting it for Wakefield. We're just super fortunate in having a very talented communications director who really helps do this kind of work, which is so important because the health education part of this is very, very important, and we need to keep sending out messaging, and we have to keep changing it, you know, so that people notice it. So that's where we're at.
Great. Thank you so much, Ruth. Any further questions or comments from the board or anyone? Tom? Nope. Okay. Thank you both. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Ruth, for the update. Item number 10, moving to the farmer's market. Do we still have, I think I saw.
Hi, Madam Chair. Yeah.
Oh, there you are, Rob.
Hi.
Your little square kept moving around on me. Sorry. I'll turn this over to you, Rob.
Hi. Yeah. Thank you. So.
If you could just, I'm sorry, introduce yourself and state your address.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Rob Darnell, 11 Spalding Street. I'm the representing the farmers market tonight. We're looking to host 2 additional events on the 21st of November and one on the 12th of December. It's been going well all summer. We've had nearly 1,200 people turn up every Saturday. And we feel like we can safely proceed with 2 other events.
Yeah.
So we're looking for approval to, I spoke to Steve Mayo and he suggested that we could just extend our permit through December 12th.
Oh, excuse me, just for those.
That's
2
right.
dates? Just for those 2 dates?
Just for those 2 dates, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that sounds great. I've been every weekend in tremendous amount of social distancing. There's someone counting, people entering one way, exiting the others, plenty of hand sanitizer. It is everyone's in masks. It's a very safe feeling. to be there. And it's so lovely that we've been able to use it. So thanks so
Yeah.
much, Rob.
No, thanks.
Does anyone have any questions for Rob or before we move to a vote? Jonathan.
Thank you. Just a quick question, Mr. Mayo. So sort of assuming that we move ahead to approve this, which I hope we do, I'm excited to have a couple more dates for the farmers market. My assumption is the license agreement that we have in place, we'll just amend that to extend to December 12th or 19th, whatever the date is.
Exactly. We'll add those 2 dates, the 21st of November and the 12th of December.
Okay.
Just for those 2 dates.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. Any other, anyone else have any questions or comments? No? Okay. Maureen, did you have a hand?
No. I did. Sorry. Just to be really quick. I just echoing what Jonathan and Ann said, going to the farmers market. And I just something to have those types of numbers and have everyone be safe. I just want to take a moment that it's all volunteer run. So it's volunteers who put up the tent and give the sanitizer when you walk in and make sure people are wearing their mask. And Rob and Anne Marie, who's today's her anniversary, so she couldn't be here. But all the volunteers have just done such a great job of during the pandemic having a resource for us to go to. So I just wanted to take a moment to thank them. They selflessly have helped us in Wakefield, and so I'm really excited to extend it beyond the normal season.
Thanks, Maureen. Would someone like to make a motion to extend the farmers market agreement to through December 12th with dates noted of November 21st and December 12th as being the dates that the market will occur?
So moved.
Moved by Ed, seconded by Jonathan. Any discussion? No. Okay, roll call vote. Myself, yes. Ed?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Peter? Okay. I think we're all good. Good. Unanimous. Thanks, Rob, so much for coming forward and bringing this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your time.
Take care.
Thanks.
John Smolinski hanging in there to the bitter end almost. Sidewalk Stale extension request, very similar. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. I appreciate the council letting us come forward. A quick recap for you. We've had 2 of these, 3 dates approved. 2 have already taken place. In some adversity, the first Saturday we had some rain issues that kind of put a damper on things. The second, again, fighting COVID and adhering to all the rules and regulations required. But with that being said, we at the Chamber have been pleased with what's happened and thought we would like to continue this for the benefit of the merchants in the community and the shoppers as a whole. For the first 2 weekends that we've had, we've given out 120 gift certificates, which equates to $6,000 being spent in the town at various merchants. With that being said, the 120 gift certificates translates to $1,200 in gift certificates that'll go to various restaurants. So they're moving from the merchants, the shoppers are going to the restaurants, and those gift certificates are $10 a piece. You're going to spend more than the $10. So with the $6,000 at the merchants and the $1,200 that's been purchased and what else we look to have them spend, we think it's been fairly successful and happy that we've been able to put it forward with the support of the town and the council. So with that being said, we are requesting the council consider allowing us to extend it into the holiday season. The Saturday after Thanksgiving is Small Business Saturday, and that's one of the dates we'd like to put forward. That's Saturday, November 28th. And then one last push, hopefully the weather will cooperate, Saturday, December 19th. Again, I have not heard any repercussions from Ruth or Tom or the town administrator about issues with crowds in the stores. Unfortunately, as much as we like that, I think that the crowds that have filtered in have been moving through the community, and we haven't had any issues that have been brought to our attention at the chamber that need to be addressed. So we're happy to know that $6,000 has been part of these Saturdays, $1,200 in gift certificates, The town administrator has done his part. I delivered his gift certificates personally. I hope he'll spend them wisely. He was supposed to invite me to enjoy an adult beverage with them, but that hasn't happened yet. So we're looking at the next Saturday coming up in October, and would like the permission to extend those into November and December. And as I promised, even though the Chamber of Commerce is coordinating this and putting this forward, we've included every merchant in town and has not excluded anybody. It's not just Chamber members. We're doing this for the benefit of the entire business community, residents, and all of the merchants. So we feel it's a win-win for the community in a very positive manner and a safe one as well.
John, thank you so much. Any questions for John or comments? No? Excellent. I'm really excited to ask someone to make this motion to extend the sidewalk sale to November 28th and December 19th.
So moved.
Moved by Ed,
Second.
seconded by Jonathan. Any discussion further? Nope. I, myself, Ed.
Enthusiastic, yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Julie.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
And Peter. Excellent. Unanimously supporting you and the businesses, John. Thank you so much for coming before us.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. And just a simple request, don't put me on the agenda next time you invite the school committee.
Yeah, it's just, sorry about that.
Thank you all very, very much.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, item number 12, proposed zoning bylaw articles. We have a motion to refer to the planning board the 2 citizen petition articles for the regular town meeting proposing changes to the zoning bylaw, amending sections 190-23B as presented. Steve, should I go to you or to Tom?
You can go to me, but on the face of these, this is a kind of a rote perfunctory role of the town council. They shall refer these to the planning board. There might be another request there that was made by the petitioners, but in that regard, it is just in the normal procedure. Maybe Tom Mullen wants to jump in and if he wants.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. I think this is a purely ministerial function. The board is supposed to, under Chapter 48, Section 5, promptly refer these articles to the planning board after having received them.
Excellent. Is there a motion to refer these articles to the planning board that we shall do under the statute?
So moved.
Moved by Jonathan.
Second.
Seconded by Paul. Any discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd like to enter into the discussion. This is Bill Conley.
So Bill, I don't think that we can take a discussion on this because there's no public participation and it's just a mandatory movement of the articles to the zoning board. Ed has his hand up.
Madam Chair, can I just clarify? I understand that it's rather perfunctory, but I think the question is one of when this would end up going before the planning board, so as to whether this would be on at this fall town meeting or at some later point in time.
Right. Ed, that's a great question. I was going to actually ask Tom or Steve to comment on that, even though our role is done when we move the articles over for this point. But as we know, all of these articles and the zoning board, the statute and time limits are really, we don't have much wiggle room about that. So I can take the motion while Tom is looking up something maybe.
No. So let me just lay out some of the basic rules here. No vote may be taken at a town meeting on a proposed zoning amendment unless the planning board has held its hearing and issued its report. Here, the planning board could, if it wanted to deviate from its traditions and policies and hold special emergency meetings they could have time after your referral to hold a hearing and issue a report. They don't have to, and your council has no power over whether they choose to exercise that discretion.
Right.
The timing issues are that they have to post, they have to publish notice of their hearing not less than 2 weeks before.
The town meeting.
Before the
Before the hearing
that the planning board holds.
Okay.
Then they hold their hearing, they issue their report, and if those things don't happen, and there's not enough time for it to happen unless they act in an extraordinary fashion, then I'm going to have to advise the town moderator not to permit any discussion or vote on these articles.
Okay. So it appears that, I mean, our hands are tied by the statute.
Yes.
If there's any action to be urged, it has to be to the planning board.
Yes.
That's who controls that right now.
Right.
You know, the timing of it.
Thank you for the clarification.
No, absolutely, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for bringing it up, Ed. Any other questions from the counselors? Julie.
So my understanding is that this was submitted the last day that we were taking input on the warrant. So there would have been nothing to stop them from doing that earlier and being able to meet the timeframes that Mr. Mullen describes. Is that correct?
That's right.
And in fact, I think we had that case, right? On this town meeting. I think we have had some things referred to the zoning board.
Yes, we have.
Okay. Okay, I just want to clarify that.
So I didn't mean to indicate Mr. Conley couldn't talk, Bill Conley couldn't talk, but we really don't usually have folks chime in on something that this is just perfunctory for us to send this over. I'm sure members of this board will have thoughts at some point down the line as it concerns this issue. But for now, I will take a motion. Did we do it? We moved and seconded, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so I'll go roll call to send the 2 citizen petition articles to the zoning regarding changes to the zoning bylaw. Myself, yes. Ed?
Aye.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Peter? Excellent. I can read your lips, Peter. Thank you. So those articles will be sent over. Thanks, Tom, and for your clarification. Okay. This one I'm definitely giving to Tom. Item number 3, settlement agreement, motion to approve the Woods settlement agreement.
So there is before you a request by our special counsel, Anderson and Krieger, to authorize the settlement agreement that has been negotiated between the town and the Woods LLC, the owner of property on Butler Street, which is allegedly contaminated with asbestos that the allegations are town officials caused to be deposited there after the burning of the Atwell building decades ago. And basically what is proposed is all subject to town meeting approval, but the town would propose to purchase for a price of $2,150,000 the property that is owned by the Woods LLC. Woods would assign to the town its insurance policy and claims so that we might be able to offset some of our own costs. The town would undertake to remediate the property, and in particular to cap the affected area, and would be free to proceed to develop, subject of course to approval by the planning board, the area for some form of housing consistent with zoning. The lawsuit would be dismissed. The Woods would give us, in the draft agreement, complete release. I think that's about it. I'd be happy to try to answer any further questions.
Does anyone have any questions for Tom? And this is something we've been dealing with. I've been dealing with it since the inception of the issue, and the rest in bits since then. Anyone have any questions? No? All right. Seeing none, I would move that we is the motion simply to approve the Woods settlement agreement, Tom?
Yes, please.
Okay. If someone could move to approve the Woods settlement agreement.
So moved. And Madam Chair, if we could just make sure that everyone watching understands, when we had those executive sessions all of the many months, we were talking about this. So this was a very deliberate, thoughtful, protracted negotiation. It was, and we had excellent counsel leading us all the way through.
Yeah, no, thank you, Ed. Excellent point. Second, please.
Second.
Seconded by Julie. Roll call vote. Yes, Ed.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Paul.
Yes.
Julie.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
Peter. Yes. Thank you so much, Tom. Okay. Item number 14, we need a motion to approve the warrant for the November 7th, 2020 regular town meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Jonathan.
Second.
Seconded by Maureen. Any discussion? Seeing none. Myself, yes. Ed.
Yes.
Jonathan.
Yes.
Paul. Yes. Julie.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
And Peter. Indicated yes. Excellent. Great. Okay. Item number 15, warrants. Is that you, Jonathan?
That is me. Just quickly, on October 10th of 2020, I signed the last two warrants for fiscal year 2020, which were warrants 54 and 56, for a total of $1,265,000 in general expenses and $1,549 in payroll. I also did sign for fiscal year 2021 warrants 6, 8, 10, 12, 13, and 14. Total of $14.5 million of general expenses and $7.7 million in payroll. All of the details are in the town council packet, and certainly if there are any questions, happy to answer them.
Great. Does anyone have questions for Jonathan at 10:13 p.m.? No, we're all good. On warrants. Good. All righty. Thank you for that update. Going around for announcements, I'll start with, I appreciate how hard the FLQ, Friends of Lake Quannapowitt, have worked to benefit not themselves, but the entire town, focusing on the lake and any development that's around there. The timing of this is really tricky. It is completely outside of our hands, but the town council as a whole, individual councilors, we could certainly, if it's within possibility or their purview, we could ask the zoning board to expedite any decision they made. We've held special meetings when important things have happened. I don't know if it would make a difference, but I really do. I appreciate the hard work that the Friends Lake Quannapowitt have put into this. They were doing this basically by themselves, which might explain why they missed some critical timing issues. So just something to put out there if folks want to weigh in on that. I don't want to step over what the ZBA is doing at all. We have no control over them, but this is an issue that affects the entire town. So.
Madam Chair, may I just add one thing?
Sure.
I don't want people to think that but for a mistake made by Friends of Lake Quannapowitt,
Right.
things could be changed. It's almost impossible once a proposal is made to change the zoning bylaws in such a way as to block the proposal. The law is intentionally designed that way because, as these developers know very well, if they file an A&R plan, approval not required plan, with the planning board, and it ultimately gets approved, which is something that if the plan is proper, the planning board has to do, then for 3 years, use is grandfathered, and these articles relate to use. Alternatively, the developer could simply file a subdivision plan. If it is approved, then all zoning is grandfathered for them on that lot for 8 years.
Yeah.
And they never have to actually build in compliance with these plans. They just have to file them and get them approved. So it wasn't going to be. It was not meant to be, no matter what.
Yeah. So, yeah, thank you so much for clarifying that. So maybe the effort goes into just working with the planning board, continuing to work with the plans that are presented to make something that would be amenable to all parties. Great. Thank you so much for that. Anyone have announcements? Jonathan. You.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of quick things. Wanted to highlight that early voting in Town Hall starts on Saturday, which is great. I feel like we've been in presidential election mode for years at this point, but early voting does start, and so if folks are interested in doing that, the times are posted on the town website, and great thanks to Betsy Sharon and her team in the town clerk's office for managing that process, which certainly requires a lot of effort. I did want to briefly mention as well that the Cultural Council is seeking grant applications for their grant cycle for this year. Those applications are due on November 16th, with details also available on the town website. And I think our colleague, Councillor Butt, who is a prior awardee of one of those grants, can tell you it's very easy to fill out that application, and a great opportunity to help enhance the cultural life of our community. Finally, just wanted to mention actually the next Saturdays on the Sidewalk, hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, I am going to be hosting my office hours for the month of October. That'll be starting at noon on the plaza in front of the library. So outside again, please come by and let me know what's on your mind, and make sure you bring your mask.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I just want to correct myself. I kept saying ZBA. It meant planning board for any of those last comments. Julie, you saw your hand up.
Yeah. October 22nd, and obviously all of this is virtual, but the light department is hosting a, they're calling a Sense Home Energy Monitor Rebate Program. It's a new rebate program around energy efficiency. So that may be of interest, and I'm sure information's on their website. And I'm really happy that the Conservation Commission is hosting a seminar on light pollution on October 29th at 7 p.m. and that's also virtual. I think that's really, I personally think kind of light and noise pollution are things we should probably be talking about a little more in town. So I'm really pleased they're doing that. And the library has the new Commit to Your Community program going on that I think Maureen mentioned last time that they got a grant for, but there's some really interesting book discussions going on. So I'm excited to read and participate in those, and it's all around building community, which is great. And then finally, keep your plastic bags coming. I heard today we're up to 3 benches. So drop off your plastic bags at Town Hall and try to get them turned into benches in schools.
Excellent. Thanks, Julie. Maureen.
This is concur with everything said earlier, and then just want to add, it's kind of indefinite, but once it becomes definite, we will share. So last year, the company that does composting set up some trucks at all the elementary schools so you could put your pumpkins there after Halloween, and we kept like thousands and thousands of pounds of compostable things out of the landfills. Like, great idea. And so I checked in with the sustainable group. Julie, I'm looking at you, and they haven't heard that if it's going to happen again.
As of this afternoon, they haven't gotten confirmation, but we're
But
still.
if it happens, I'd love, Steve, if we could publicize it, because if you don't have kids in the school system, you don't know about it. But I just thought it was such a great thing of, jack-o'-lanterns and pumpkins are beautiful, and we shouldn't send them to landfills. They should get compost for community gardens next year.
We definitely will, if so let us know as soon as you guys do.
Great. Thanks, Maureen. Any other announcements? Do I see hand? I don't see any hands. I forgot to mention also that all of us who have been stuck at the house cleaning and organizing, this Saturday from 9 to 12 at the Hurd School, you can drop off books. The library is collecting their books. You can just pull up and someone will take them. So I'm thrilled to get rid of a bunch of great books. I believe it's on the website too, and I think we all got emails about that. I don't see any counselors left. Tom, do you have anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. Steve?
Yes, very quickly, Madam Chair.
Sure.
The tri-board meeting is the 21st at 7 p.m. That is totally virtual. The screen will be filled off. We're certainly going to limit any comments from the school committee. They used up all their minutes tonight. So. But it is it's really good. Former Chair Dombrowski started it last year, and I think it gives a lot of information to the public. So if anybody has anything that they want to discuss at that meeting, please let me know by tomorrow morning, because we have to get the agenda posted.
The agenda really seems to be focusing on what the budget looks like in this coming year, in the COVID response. So it will be great. Is there, we can talk to WCAT after this, but is there a way to, there's not a way to, just trying to think for if it's all virtual for us to organize. You can't organize the screen to, to have like all the committee members.
I think a lot of it will be shared.
Okay.
With a PowerPoint presentation. So.
Oh, okay. So that's great. We can see that. All righty. Seeing no other comments, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Actually, Madam Chair, I did have just a matter not anticipated.
Sure. I'm sorry. Yep, Ed. Absolutely.
It just goes back to our tax classification discussion earlier. And as I understand it, we had 4 votes that were presented before this body tonight. And none of them actually address the issue of the recommendation that we go our full tax levy limit. The first simply set the minimum residential factor at 1.75, which is the absolute we can. And then the 3 others dealt with the open space discount, residential exemption, and the small commercial exemption. So I just want to be on the record as clarifying, we did not vote on the notion of going that limit of the 2.5% max that we're able to do if we so choose.
Steve, is that?
Yeah, essentially that's correct. That was okay. It was in the number, but you don't take an actual vote.
Okay.
I think just to be clear on that, because I was adamant that I am not in favor of the 2.5, but there was not and I believe actually at least one of my other colleagues was as well. But there was no mechanism by which to vote against the 2.5% based upon the 4 votes and only those 4 votes that were opposed.
Correct. And I think that this is how we've done the tax classification for several years, Steve.
Yeah.
Since the same 4 votes.
20+ years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I can.
I do think it becomes problematic, though, Madam Chair, because literally there was never a yay or nay about that. It was certainly we all want the residential factor to be as high as possible to lessen the tax burden, but there was no that does not endorse the going to a full 2.5%, and nor do the other 3 questions there. So I think that's important for the public to understand, because I'm adamantly opposed to this 2.5%.
Okay, thanks so much, Ed. Anyone else have a matter not anticipated? Nope. Okay. So I'll take that motion for adjournment now.
So moved.
Moved by Jonathan, seconded by Paul. Roll call. Myself, yes. Ed?
Yes.
Jonathan?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Julie? Mayreen?
Yes.
And Peter? Excellent. That adjourns the meeting. Thank you all, and thanks for those who hung with us till 10:24. We'll see you at the Tri-Board meeting on October 21st? October 21st, which will have FinCom, School Committee, and Town Council. Thanks, and good night, everyone. Thank you, WCAT.
Right.